those things called? Plug things.
It wasn't.
Nameplates?
No, the Good evening. Welcome to the November 9th Northampton School Committee meeting. I'm Mayor Gina Louise Shara, the chair of the school committee, and I will be presiding this evening. This meeting is being held both remotely on Zoom pursuant to the modification of the state's open meeting law for the pandemic and in person here in the community room at JFK Middle School. This meeting and all participating will be audio and video recorded. And I will begin by asking the clerk to please call the roll of the school committee.
Mayor Shara.
Present.
Member Robbins.
Present.
Member Gazy.
Did you say my name?
Yes, Member Gazy. Is this on? Member Seraphy Cox. Present. Member Stein. Present. Oh, you're here. Member Levy. Are you here? There you are. Yes. Member Miller.
Present.
Oh, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep,
Yes.
I can hear you. Yep, thank you. Member Goldman.
Present.
Member Agna.
Present.
And Member Davis.
Present.
Your Honor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. And I'll note that Member Agna, Member Levy, and Member Goldman are participating remotely over Zoom. First up on our agenda is the student representative report with Zara. Hi, Zara.
Hi.
Thanks for being here.
Do I need to do anything? Do I just speak into it?
I think you just speak into it. Maybe angle it towards you a little bit, but you should be good to go. Thanks.
Okay. 1 second. Let me just get out my document, which is proving rather difficult to find. Okay. Well, lovely to see you guys.
Oh, wait, hold on 1 sec. I apologize. Member Agnes says that they can't hear anyone. Is that still true? Oh, how would you know? You can't hear me.
I can hear. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, there we go.
Apologies. I'll give the floor back to you,
Okay,
Sarah.
awesome. So, the school year is now in full swing. All the policies that we talked about last meeting, such as like the phone caddy and the hall pass implementation, are more steady. The student union just ended our merch sale for School Spirit, and the musical auditions are next week, and the pit orchestra auditions for the musical, which is Freaky Friday, in case you guys didn't know, happened, I think, the week before this one. The marching band went here to JFK to do some recruitment and played for the band students in the 6th, 7th, and 8th grades. Students who took the PSATs, which would be 10th and 11th graders who opted in, got their results back on Monday. And AP test decisions were due on November 1st. So, there were a lot of conversations around that happening in the school. And early decision applications for seniors some already happened, the November 1st deadlines, and some are approaching. Other than that, there's not that much going on right now. Several fundraisers, but the school year is pretty steady right now. If you have any questions, let me know.
Thank you. Any questions? Member Stein.
I took a bite of a cookie at the wrong moment. Sorry. I was just curious if you could share a little bit about what the conversations are that students are weighing whether or not to take the AP test.
Oh, yes. Well, in my AP classes, most teachers have just stated the pros and cons of taking it. And I mean, I think overall encouragement to take it, but also not shaming students who decided not to take it, and understanding that it is a stressful experience. But definitely encouragement, and I mean, most people I know are opting to take it, but it is $100 per AP test if you aren't on free or reduced lunch. So it is a little bit of a hefty load as far as money is concerned.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none. Thank you so much. Okay, next on the agenda is public comment, and we're taking public comment in person and over Zoom. There's a sign-up sheet for comment in the community room, and I will go through the names that signed up. And for those on Zoom, if you wish to make a comment, please raise your hand. Before you begin, please state your name and your city or town for the public record. I'll set a 3-minute timer to ensure everyone has an equal opportunity to speak, and but you don't need to feel obligated to use all 3 minutes. And we expect that school committee members and members of the public shall conduct themselves with civility and respect at all times. So, thank you. First up is River, please. Hi, welcome.
My name is River Brunel Wojcik. I am 16 and a sophomore at Northampton High School. I am here today in support of the Green New Deal for public schools, a landmark proposal to reshape America's K-12 public school system in the face of the climate crisis. Similar to most people my age, I spend almost all of my time at school, which is supposed to teach us how to navigate the world and prepare us for our futures, but I don't feel like it is. Every time I think about my future, I think about the climate crisis. I am not sure if there will even be a livable future for me. I already see the effects of it around me. It's only going to get worse if we don't create major change right now. This is important both locally and at a large scale. It is hard to make change when you feel hopeless. This is one of the reasons why climate education is so important. Every day, the climate crisis gets worse. Storms and fires become more intense and frequent. The oceans are warming and rising. Every year, it seems a new record heat is recorded. We are losing species, and food shortages and climate disasters happen without plans in place to stop them or resources to recover. If left unchecked, this could push up to 130 million people into poverty in the next 10 years. The current systems in place have failed our entire generation and our entire world. Green New Deal for schools will ensure a climate curriculum that supports meaningful change and hope. It is hard to feel safe when you feel like the world is collapsing on you, especially when in school climate change is not mentioned or acted on nearly enough. Green New Deal for schools will provide pathways to safe, well-paying union jobs, helping to build green infrastructure, preparing students to be part of the change whether they are pursuing higher education or not. We deserve a climate curriculum that supports meaningful action. We demand pathways to green jobs. We need a Green New Deal for public schools. We can not be divided right now. Together, we can change schools for the better. I want to remind you that your job is to prepare us for the future, give us what we need to become adults in our society, to help us prepare for jobs and further education. We are here to ask for what we need, and I hope you will listen and make changes, because you're on our side, right? When you do not listen to the youth, you tell me what my future is worth to you. Every time you do not take action, you are not doing your job. A livable future is worth everything you have to give. We would like to open a dialogue with you about this issue so we can be in direct communication. So I ask you, will you agree to meet with us about the Green New Deal for schools? Thank you.
Thank you, River. Okay, next on the list is Soph.
Good evening, members of the public and school committee. My name is Soph. I use they, them pronouns, and I'm a sophomore at Northampton High School. I hate speaking in front of people, if I'm being honest. Believe me, I wouldn't be here right now if I didn't feel like I needed to. I'm scared. I'm scared that the kids in school right now with me lack the knowledge that the climate crisis is happening right here, right now. I'm scared that people in our school don't know they won't have a future if not enough people fight for it. I'm scared that people in power won't use their authority to put students, communities, and all people they serve first, before profit, before greed, and before personal power. We, the students, need to be safe in the schools that the law requires us to be in 6 hours a day, and we need students to be educated about what's going on. We need a green new deal for the Northampton Public Schools District. The Green New Deal for Public Schools Act was just reintroduced by Jamal Bowman at a press conference in the Senate swamp a few weeks ago in Washington, D.C. A Green New Deal for Public Schools means a climate curriculum that is realistic and talks about what is happening and what we need to do to stop the climate crisis. A Green New Deal for Public Schools means climate disaster plans, having buildings be safe and clean, healthy and unlimited breakfast and lunch for youth, and having good paying, green, union livable jobs out of high school. These are achievable demands, and they are students' basic rights. As school committee members, I'm sure that you want the absolute best for the youth that you were elected to serve. Your youth is here today to tell you that this is what we need. We would love to set up a meeting with each and every one of you to talk about this further. Please check your emails after the school committee meeting is finished, as one of us will send a follow-up email about this. Thank you.
Thank you, Soph. Sorry, the light just turned off on you all. It's on a sensor, so yeah, if you move around, it'll go back on. I guess you really have to move around. There you go. Next is Adele Franks. Hi, Adele. Can you unmute?
Maybe we need to.
I'm
there you
trying
go.
to unmute.
You did it.
And that's wonderful. And I'm trying to start my video, but it says that the host has stopped it. So whatever that
Try
means.
now, Adele. Give it a shot.
Okay.
There you go.
Thank you very much. So for those who don't know me, I'm Franks. I live in Florida, and the Select Committee on Pesticide Use Reduction.
Oh, I'm sorry, Adele, could you pause for 1 second? For some reason, you're going in and out, and I don't...
Sometimes if she turns off her video, it helps with the audio, sometimes.
I know we just went through this process. Okay. There's still like some weird...
It almost sounds like the microphone is up against some fabric or something.
Oh, yeah. Do you know where the mic is on your computer, Adele? Is maybe something on it?
Well, how is it now?
Better.
I think better.
Okay. Well, the committee that I chaired started in 2019, and we produced a report at the end of 2019. We spent many months, and I noticed that on your budget, on your agenda tonight, you have an item about an ad hoc committee analyzing the feasibility of organic management of the playing fields. And so I wanted to offer that you all, if you decide to have an ad hoc committee on this topic, I would like to offer that you would invite some of the folks who were on the select committee to be on this ad hoc committee, because I would hate to see you all wasting your time doing things that had already been done, because your time is obviously very valuable. And so just to let you know what we did, our committee spent many months examining carefully the health data, and this is a health issue, not a budget issue. And we consulted state experts on organic management of playing fields. we talked with other communities who were already doing organic management of playing fields, and we provided quite a few resources to the city for training opportunities, for grant funding, for websites that could be used to educate staff in the city. And at this point, I don't understand why this issue is coming up again, but if you decide to form an ad hoc committee on this topic, please include some people who were on the select committee who have already examined this topic and have, in fact, quite a bit of expertise and knowledge to transmit. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, next is Karen Chiaffo.
Good evening.
Good evening.
There are, my name is Karen Schiappo. I'm a Florence resident, and I'm also the Ryan Road school nurse. There were two agenda items that I would like to address tonight. The first one is the LPN sub-nurse pay. I respectfully request that you vote in favor of changing the pay rate for LPN sub-nurses to a flat rate of $200 per day. A yes vote aligns this with how we pay our RN sub-nurses, and our current LPN makes $25 an hour. She hasn't received an increase in 3 years, and the average rate for an LPN in Massachusetts is $29 an hour. At $200 a day, the sub would make about $30 an hour for a 6.5-hour school day, and would make about $28 an hour for a 7-hour day, which is what JFK has, and our LPN sub is often at JFK. This change will be competitive in the region and allow Northampton Public Schools to attract and retain an appropriate sub-nurse pool. A yes vote helps to ensure adequate health office staffing, which allows us to be available to serve our students. The second thing I want to address is the condom policy. I ask that you not change the current policy. My rationale is as follows. Current practice at Northampton High School provides anonymous access to condoms coupled with sex ed through a mandatory 9th grade wellness class. This approach is evidence-based and broadly recognized. Anonymity and accessibility are key attributes of quality adolescent health services. Tracking permissions and counseling upon request are barriers to obtaining condoms for high school students. Access for middle school students is more complicated. The health office at JFK is a busy place and not conducive to counseling sessions or condom distribution. It would be time-consuming and keep students out of class, thus negatively impacting time on learning. Every student deserves equitable access to effective, comprehensive health ed and sex ed programming, not just those bold enough to ask. This includes dedicated classes for health education every year from pre-K through 12th grade, facilitated by qualified educators who are trained in the subject matter. Education is the most appropriate way to bring about a change. I request that you bring this issue back to the policy subcommittee for further discussion and review. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, and next is Jamila Gore.
Hello, I'm Counselor Jamila Gore at large. Just wanted to say a quick public comment to support the two resolutions in supporting the mass Senate bills around school funding. I think it's really important that we support these bills in the State House, and I think other communities like Greenfield have gotten behind it, and I think we should also support these bills. So I'm just on here in support of that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Counselor. Okay. Is there anyone else in the room who would like to speak? No? Okay, seeing no further hands, we'll move on from public comment. And we are now at announcements by school committee members. Any announcements? Member Agna.
Hi, I'm in Hyannis, Massachusetts with Dr. Bonner and actually the 3 Smith vocational trustees. Julie Spencer Robinson is on here as well. We're at the Massachusetts Association of School Committee / Massachusetts Superintendents meeting, the annual meeting. And I'm hoping that maybe Dr. Bonner and I can give a full report about this, what we were able to glean from this meeting. Reassure the students that we heard some very good presentations on climate change and the curriculum and how that's going to be part of the plan for the schools in Massachusetts. Also, I'm serving as your delegate for the resolutions, which I will report on the results of that as well. But I just wanted to thank you for sending me here, and appreciate the time and effort that MASC and MASS put into what seems to be a very good conference. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other announcements by school committee members? Okay. Then we are moving on to recommended actions. I will read the items and then ask if there are any removals, because there's no discussion on the consent agenda unless an item is removed. So the items I see these are meeting minutes for approval, October 12th, SAC meeting, October 12th, full school committee meeting, January 24th, 2023, these are all 2023, special school committee meeting, February 10th, 22, student advisory meeting, February 14th, 2019, school committee meeting, November 9th, 2020, school committee meeting, June 14th, 23, special school committee meeting, July 21st, 2020, school committee meeting, November 10th, 2022, school committee meeting, December 3rd, 2020, special school committee meeting, April 13th, 2020, school committee budget meeting, and those, I believe, are all the items on the consent agenda. Are there any removals for, yes. Member Robbins.
Yes, I wonder if we could hold on October 12th, both sessions where there are some challenges in accuracy. And then again on June 14th, which needs just some more detail in it that's not included on the discussion. And then November 10th, 2022, which has inaccurate voting record on it.
Would you, I can remove those, would you be able to suggest amendments to them?
I think it might be a little time consuming to do that, and it would be worth it for those. I mean, I can't comment on the meetings that I wasn't here for unless we looked at the videos on it, but some of them are relatively minor. For example, in the SAC meeting for October 12th, there is, I think, a quote from Dr. Worley, or perhaps it might have been me commenting on it, that Dr. Worley was making great progress with standards-based grading, which I'm quite sure wasn't the part of the discussion we were talking about. It was, I think it was just an inaccurate verbiage, but it's important about how that gets interpreted, because these minutes are memorializations of historical record. On the October 12th one, I believe on the October 12th one, 2023, there's a piece that might be just a little bit more accurate. I think the dialogue is around us creating a 5-year plan which we would share with the community, where I think the discussion was we're going to be working on a process of creating a strategic plan that is very much involved with the community. And I just think that it's important to have language in that that's appropriate. So I wouldn't want to wordsmith it at this moment, to be exact, but I do think it would be helpful to have it be accurate.
So would you bring amendments to the next meeting? Should we save these for the next meeting and then you'd bring
I would be happy to do
suggestions?
that,
Okay.
yes, yeah.
Okay, so we are removing both October 12th meetings, June 14th, 23 meeting, the November 10th, 22 special school committee meeting for the next meeting. And that leaves the other meetings. Is there a motion on recommended actions on those meetings?
I just wanted to confirm with Annie or with Dr. Bonner if the changes that I had suggested, they went into the versions that are on here, right?
It's the same link.
Okay, but it's, yeah, so the suggestions I had made, I don't need to pull either of them then? Because
No,
they're
there
already
are,
incorporated.
you can go through them, and I think you and I had a little conversation about one of it.
Right,
you know,
right.
However you want to do it, but they are in there currently right now.
Yeah, okay,
What you're voting on is what you suggested.
got it,
And I appreciate the suggestion before the meeting, appreciate that.
sure. So
again, there's no discussion on these.
Oh, I didn't pull June 14th, did you?
Yeah,
Okay, then, no, I was talking to her about something else.
I know.
Okay.
Okay, so
We're
we've
good.
removed 4. This is, I'm looking for a motion on the consent agenda for the remaining minutes. Member Stein.
I make a motion to approve the minutes for January 24th, 2023, February 10th, 2022, February 14th, 2019, November 9th, 2020, July 21st, 2020, December 3rd, 2020, and April 13th, 2020.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made by Member Stein, seconded by Member Seraphy Cox. Roll call, please. Is there something else you wanted to remove, Member Miller? No.
I was just going to say that I had already submitted to the clerk 2 inaccuracies that I found in one that's already been corrected.
Yes.
Great. Okay. On the
Okay.
ones that have been removed or the ones we're voting on right now?
No, it was, sorry. I think
Okay.
it was actually in the,
The ones that have been removed,
Oh, okay.
so.
So maybe you've caught some of the things that,
Right, that'd be great.
okay, so maybe we can share those with Member Robbins.
Okay.
Awesome. Roll call, please.
Member Robbins.
Sure. Sorry.
Member Gazy.
Yes.
Member Seraphy Cox.
Yes.
Member Stein.
Yes.
Member Levy.
Oh, Member Levy has had to leave.
She has left. Member Miller.
yes.
Member Goldman.
Yes.
Member Agna.
Yes.
Member Davis.
Yes.
Yes.
And Mayor Shara.
Yes. I don't know who that is. Okay. You might be, are you unmuted, Margaret?
No,
I just heard myself over there. Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
I'm on, you're on.
Okay. Yeah, yes?
I know.
Something's going on. I think it's you, Ollie.
Aileen, if you disconnect your audio,
It's,
You have to both turn your audio all the way down and then mute your Zoom.
got it. Does that fix it?
can I help?
Yes. It was fine before.
I just disconnected your audio.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I was just wondering,
Still.
but I was just wondering if in the future, when we get packages of minutes and we find errors, is the procedure to call in or send those things before the meeting?
So,
Margaret had become unmuted for some reason.
okay, great. Your question. So generally, like if there's small scriveners, or if there's something that might need deliberation, you'd want to bring it here. But also like a scrivener's error, you could just pull it off the agenda and say, this name was spelled incorrectly, and that would be a quick fix, and we would fix it and
Okay.
move on. But
Fine.
does that answer your?
Yeah, just wondering what the procedure was.
Generally, those corrections are done in a meeting.
Okay.
Okay. New business. We are up to A, recommendation to appoint an ad hoc committee to analyze the feasibility and implementation of the organic maintenance of sports fields. And I think Dr. Bonner is going to speak to this.
Hey, good evening. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm suffering with a little bit of a sinus infection, so bear with me. So at our last Budget and Property Subcommittee, there was conversation around the organic fields management, and there was a recommendation from that subcommittee to create an ad hoc committee that can work specifically on this topic and to move the process forward. There was a request for 3 bids to come in for actually doing the organic management for us. And the purpose of the ad hoc committee would be to have conversations about, is this feasible for the district? What would it cost to maintain? What are the pros and cons in terms of what some other districts have noticed when they move to organic management of their fields, and how there seems to be more injuries for our students. So just to kind of weigh those pros and cons, and then to also have a conversation with, on the city side, in terms of what they have done to move to organic management of the fields in the park system. So I'm hoping tonight that that the school committee would move forward in terms of appointing an ad hoc committee that can look at this. I do know that we need to make some decisions to have things in place before December 2024. So this ad hoc committee would have a quick end date once they get started.
And so yes, the need is to be in compliance by December 2024. So the committee, we would hope for a report in the fall, so maybe October of 2024. And so I would make appointments by, let's say, the beginning of the year for folks to have some time to work on that. And yes, Member Cox.
Yeah, so I was surprised to see the word feasibility on the charge for this ad hoc committee. And so I'm wondering, are you envisioning then that the ad hoc committee has the possibility of coming back to the school committee to recommend that we change our policy to not implement organic turf management?
So I think that you, as a school committee, you need to weigh the pros and cons of what actually would happen once you make that change. And so it's not necessarily saying, no, don't do this, but you need to weigh all the sides in terms of, can we afford this, for one? And then what are the pros and cons? And so I'm hoping that this ad hoc committee can then list what those pros and cons are before making the decision in terms of what way we're going to move as a school committee.
Okay. I mean, it was my understanding that at least, that there was a relatively robust process leading up to the implementation of the policy to begin with. So I think that an ad hoc committee to talk about how to implement it makes sense. In terms of feasibility, certainly recommendations around budget, certainly recommendations around if there are, other changes that need to be made to how we're, operating, that sort of thing. but what I'm hearing is that if the language moves forward as it is now with the word feasibility in it, then there's the possibility that the ad hoc committee would basically come back with a recommendation to say, we can't do this as a district, and the school committee needs to change the policy. And I just want to be really clear about that is what we would be, as it were, opening the door for this evening. Am I characterizing that correctly, Dr. Bonner?
So it sounds like you all have already made your decision that this is the way you're going to move forward. And so if that indeed is the case, then you need to know what measures you're going to have to put in place to carry this out. So the ad hoc committee should be able to put some things to determine what is necessary to move forward by that deadline.
Yeah. I mean, technically that is true. We have a policy that says that we are going to do this. So we did already make the decision. So you are correct about that. And so then the other piece about what you're saying of that we should know what it's going to take to implement it is the implementation word in here. And I'm just questioning whether or not we want to also have the word feasibility in.
Oh. So, I mean, you could always take that word out. I mean, you need to know what the cost is. You really need to know what the cost is.
Sure, of course.
Yeah. So it's a consideration. It's not just a one-time thing. It's an ongoing thing. And then also you need to know that the fields have to rest. So what are we going to do during that time while the fields are resting? Where are our sports teams going to play? So these are the kinds of things that we have to think about in order for this to be implemented.
Yeah, understood. And of course then, coordination with the city where appropriate, since they're already doing organic turf management and so it would be you, Mayor, who would be appointing members of the committee. And I would just, if we move forward with this ad hoc committee, which it makes sense to do in terms of like how it gets implemented and bringing in, of course, community members, who have been working on this for many years and helped the city to implement the same thing. So the folks from the select committee, as well as I know that Rebecca Busansky, who used to sit on the school committee, has been very involved in this issue, as well as Alyssa Klein, who used to be on the city council. So I think, considering, one or both of them to be on it, since they, of course, have the history as well.
Absolutely. I'll go 1 sec, member Stein. Absolutely. So, we were thinking the athletic director, Tony Kusneris, who, does central services for the schools, maybe someone from DPW who has the experience of having implemented this on the city side already, maybe someone also, from Parks and Rec who as well, and then caregiver, at least one school committee member, and I heard Adele's request. I think that would make sense. We don't want it to be too big, but people who could bring, good information and have the expertise either from the community or from having done this in the city. Is who we would aim to have on it.
Okay.
Member Stein.
I appreciate all the questions that Member Seraphy Cox raised and pointed out that important distinction. We've been dealing with this issue since May, I think, at least on the Budget and Property Subcommittee. My memory's not great, but I don't remember us voting to endorse setting up this ad hoc committee. I remember it was discussed, but I don't think the Budget and Property Subcommittee made a vote to suggest that we actually set this up. The reason why I don't really feel like this is necessary is because we're straying really into the implementation area of this, and it's not really a school committee purview, and I don't really understand why we need the ad hoc committee, and I say it for a few reasons. Back in 2019, we were one of 6 districts that was still using non-organic pesticides in Hampshire County. The other 10 were not. They've been doing this for years. Grants were provided for training for our staff, which they didn't use. We offered to get them again. They didn't want to use them. They told us they knew everything they had to know. To me, it's just a really basic question of implementation and managerial oversight that we don't need to be involved in. We already had a policy. Unless we're going to rethink that entire policy, I don't know why we would waste all these people's time who have already given so much time to figure out how to implement it. The field's rested for 1.5 years during COVID, and we can't wait until next fall to figure it out. So much of this practice, and what we were asked by Tony in the last couple of meetings, was he wants to use non-organic pesticides on crabgrass again in the spring. So we need to move away from this sooner than next fall in order to get to the place we need to be. We needed to start doing this a while ago, and we just need a plan. And we need oversight to make sure that plan gets put in place. And it seems odd to me that we're not just trusting the expertise of the folks we have and Dr. Bonner's leadership just to oversee it to make it happen. And if we're not going to relitigate everything and amend our policy, it's very straightforward. How are the other 10 districts already doing this? And there's probably more now in Hampshire County. And make it happen. Tony can bring us multiple quotes, go through the regular bidding process with the city, and what's required by law. If there's budgetary things that have to come from the school district, we'll deal with that during the budgeting process. And that's really it. There's no magic here in terms of what has to happen. And I don't understand the need for an ad hoc committee.
I'm going to refer to the select board that was made up of several members of our community in 2019, because they did make some recommendations that it sounds as though maybe we could have. One of them was to have an oversight committee that continued on to help with implementation and without redoing what we did before. And their recommendations, their draft recommendations, included that the focus would be on protecting children. And part of one of the concerns that initiated revisiting this was that we had parents who came to us this last spring to say that their children became ill, presumably from the application of pre-emergent crabgrass herbicides. And that is the priority for us. That was the priority for the group that met and did organic for the city. And it seems as though there's 2 separate conversations going on there. And I understand having an ad hoc with representatives from the city department would be really important, but part of their recommendation was recommend that all Northampton public schools work toward a goal of discontinuing the use of pesticides while familiarizing themselves with the harmful effects of pesticide use. We have a group of students who are with us tonight who are clearly involved in wanting to know more about that and helping us to move towards that pesticide-free future. Also to work with Smith Vocational School, who have farmland and are working on those same goals. Big part of it was strategies for funding the elimination and the reduction of pesticide use, which would be part of those recommendations. And I'm not sure that was part of our original policy that went through, that we really went through. The funding and there were recommendations for the education for it, and there were original funding amounts that were given to Tony in order to implement that, but there was no follow-through and oversight on it. And the idea of having perhaps a city and school side oversight committee that was comprised of these experts who were with us in doing this work in 2019, and the city folks and representative from the school committee would seem to me to be a very timely effort to make and possibly quite productive. So we wouldn't have to repeat all the work that they did. We could come together with what the present challenges are and really move forward to implement the policy that we did all agree on earlier.
I mean, I'll let Dr. Bonner speak to it, but I mean, I don't think there was any expectation that all the work would be redone. It was how can we finally move this forward after.
But my suggestion is to have these people at the table for that committee. Mm-hmm. So you've talked about who you thought should be on it. So we would be redoing the work if we didn't have these research voices with us and our students.
Mm-hmm. Member Goldman.
Thank you. I just want to confirm that we had our last Budget and Property Subcommittee meeting on October 16th, I believe, and this was the first topic on our agenda, and we absolutely decided to have an ad hoc subcommittee, that it would be on this meeting's agenda, and that the mayor would appoint the individuals, of course, that would be on it. So I just wanted to clarify that everything is according to and in alignment with our plans on the subcommittee. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Miller.
And I was only going to add that, and that somewhat similar, is that I think everything that Adele Franks already said needs to be followed, meaning there's already been a large group that's worked on this, and there is a policy. So I think whatever the ad hoc committee is, it needs to be about implementation and evaluation, and maybe comparing cost, options, but it's got to happen.
Member Stein.
I would make a motion to appoint an ad hoc committee to advise the school committee on how to implement its existing organic maintenance of sports fields policy by December 2024.
Second.
Motion made by Member Stein, seconded by Member Seraphy Cox. Any discussion to that motion?
Friendly amendment, that committee include at least 2 representatives from the city committee that worked on pesticides.
The select committee.
The select committee, yeah.
Accepted.
Thank you.
Any further discussion?
I have a question. Is it necessary to add, I heard Dr. Bonner say, like to review the 3 bids? Do we need to say that in there? Is that part of the implementation? Is that understood,
I
kind
think
of?
that's city procurement policy, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Member Stein.
Yeah, I mean, what's odd is sort of at the last budget and property meeting, I suggested that instead of having an ad hoc committee, we just actually had them do a bidding process to find out what it would cost, and we could just do that through normal channels. Because we've been asking Tony since May to give us pricing and let us worry about the cost. And after 3 meetings, we finally got 1 revised quote. So it was really about, that's possible without any of this. So we don't need to include it.
Okay.
Member Goldman.
Thank you. One thing I want to say is that what we've seen and discussed, Member Stein and Member Agnew, please chime in as you see fit, is that this project really needs some project management. And so my strong interest on behalf of the district for this issue is that someone would sort of take the lead in this ad hoc subcommittee and really make sure that you're laying out all the pieces that need to happen, all the information needs to be gathered, all the people who have something to contribute to the conversation, and sort of assemble that information and then come up with a recommendation out of that. And that really hoping that the committee will have a larger capacity than the Budget and Property Subcommittee had to attend to this issue, especially because there are people from so many parts of the community that are concerned and want to be engaged in this issue. My question is, what does it look like when the school committee is making recommendations about who's going to be on the ad hoc subcommittee? Not this one in particular necessarily, but just in general, before I'm voting one way or the other about the friendly amendment on the motion that's on the table. Thank you.
I'm not sure I understood your question.
I think she's asking, is it normal for us to have recommendations about who is on the ad hoc committee in a motion?
We did do
Yeah.
But I think we
Yeah.
did that for the COVID ad hoc committee.
Exit interview.
Yeah.
I'm happy to take ideas and recommendations within reason. You always want to keep it to a certain.
Except that
Get
I'm
it too big.
going to make one more friendly amendment.
Great, thank you.
I forgot to add that, I don't want this oversight committee to be huge, but I didn't put in the language to include student representation.
That was already on my list.
Yeah,
Is
that was
in
on
it?
her list
Okay, all
already.
right.
Member Agna.
I just wanted to echo what Member Goldman said about the process that we've been in, and also Member Stein, that we did have this on our agenda in May. And just to clarify the fact that Dr. Bonner became superintendent in July and inherited this, it sounds like it was kind of one of those things that was passed along and not really taken any kind of leadership in. And I think that the Budget and Property Committee, having this on the agenda, having Tony come, and really opening up the conversation again with the deadline in mind, has made everything in a different, I think we all feel differently now, and we know that we only have this time in front of us to implement this. So I just wanted to also remind everybody that Dr. Bonner this has fallen into her lap like many things that were not dealt with in the last year or even in the last few years. And so I would like to support Dr. Bonner in how we're going to go forward with this. And I think she understands that the buck stops with her, and like with everything. And I look forward to supporting the efforts to make sure that this gets implemented by December 24. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, everyone's clear on the motion? Yeah? Okay, roll call, please.
Member Gazy?
Yes.
Member Seraphy Cox?
Yes.
Member Stein?
Yes.
Member Levy's not with us. Member Miller?
Yes.
Member Goldman?
Yes.
Member Agna?
Yes.
Member Davis?
Yes.
Mayor Shara?
Yes.
And Member Robbins?
Annie, could you just repeat the motion, the verbiage?
To appoint an ad hoc committee for organic pesticide use to advise the school committee on how to implement the policy and report to the school committee by December 24th with an accepted friendly amendment to include at least 2 select committee members from the city on the ad hoc committee.
No, so it's not to report to the school committee, it's to ensure that we are able to implement by December 24th.
And I didn't hear the inclusion of the children, the students.
I think the mayor already has that on her
That was what
list.
I wanted.
She appoints.
That was why I was asking about whether or not that was
So,
included in the friendly amendment.
Member Stein,
Yeah.
can you give that to
not
me
in the
again?
sheet.
So to appoint an ad hoc committee for organic pesticide use.
To determine how to implement the organic maintenance of sports fields policy by December 2024. So it has to be implemented by then.
To determine
How to implement the organic maintenance of sports fields policy by December 2024.
By December 2024, okay. Thank you for that.
And with the friendly amendment was to request that 2 members of the
Well, I know that the mayor took that under
Select
advisement, but I would
No,
like to have it be in
it's in-
there.
part
it's
of
in-
the, part of the
Yeah,
motion.
the select members, yes.
Yes, that.
Right.
Yeah, to
Pesticide.
include 2 members of the select committee on pesticide reduction committee. It's the previous city committee, right? So it's
Right. Yeah, that's what.
okay.
Okay, that was the motion. Member Robbins, are you ready to vote?
Yes.
Thank you. All set.
Is that everybody? Okay, great.
I don't remember voting, but I vote yes.
You said yes.
I did?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
You
That was
voted
a-
twice.
You were the second.
Okay.
You'll be the first next time.
Moving on, we're at B, which is a request to increase athletic fees for FY '25. And Dr. Bonner, are you going to speak to this, or the athletic director?
I am going to turn it over to Dave. David, he is on.
Find him.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
David.
Should be able to unmute. Hi.
Okay.
Did we finish that vote?
Hold on, I'm sorry, Dave, could you hold
Sorry.
one sec?
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
I think Meg was the last one.
last
So
one.
we
Meg was the last,
we
okay.
took a break in the middle, well, a break at the end, but then finished it. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry, Dave. Welcome. How are you? Dave?
He's muted.
He is. Oh, sorry. I thought he was unmuted. There you go.
There you go.
Thank you. I don't know if I need to be seen on camera, but I can't start my video, but. I
You
don't know
can
if that
try
matters.
starting it now. Sorry. There you go.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
So, do you want me to just talk about the situation we're in? Is that how we start?
So, yes. So I'll do it very quickly, introduction, and then you can turn it over. So, as we were planning and working on the budget, we realized that one way to offset some of the deficit in terms of what we're seeing in the sporting in the athletic program is to increase fees for students. And Dave has done a comparison to other districts, and he made a recommendation, which should be in your packet, I hope, in terms of what he's recommending for each sport. And then also the next thing that you'll be voting on is also the sport, the fees in which students can attend games. So from there, Dave, I'm just going to turn it over to you. You can actually add to everything I just said.
Okay. Yeah. So the biggest reason why this kind of came to light last year, over the past couple of years, our transportation budget has really taken a hit. Our school bus provider, Durham, has struggled to provide us the necessary buses that we need due to whether it be a lack of drivers or the change in the school times, in the way that the bus routes flow, and us being the last school to end the school day. Have to talk to Tammy Lieber more about that, but I came in, my first year was also the first year of the school day flow with us ending. But I've had to go through a lot of different bus companies to fulfill our athletics trips. I give every trip out to Durham, and then they say what they can and can't take. We do have a contract with them, and then I go through a process of looking at other school bus companies, First Student, 5-Star, Kosmeskis, and then to charter bus companies to try and get our trips filled. Last year, just over about $45,000 was taken out of my revolving account to cover the overage with the transportation budget that is provided to me through the year. I feel that going into the spring season, I had pretty much tapped out the operational budget for transportation. And this year, it is looking to be pretty similar. Our school buses cannot give me a bus until 3:45 in the afternoon for athletics trips. And for pretty much every sport that does not have lights or is not inside and has to play in the afternoon, it's a real struggle, whether it be a lack of drivers, maybe casual drivers that used to exist pre-COVID that aren't available to the bus company anymore. Whatever the situation, and we're not the only district dealing with it. There's other athletic directors, other towns that are having to go charter, but it's definitely taken a significant hit on my revolving account. I can't sustain another, $45,000 being taken out of that to go towards the transportation budget. So the first look is, like Dr. Bonner said, is to increase, user fees. You know, I looked at about 10 to 12 different school districts in the area. You know, there are some districts that are charging more than us, both in per sport fees and family caps. So I tried to look at, I think, an increase that I think would be tolerable compared to for what we charge now, and you know, my recommended charge. You know, going up maybe $50. I don't have it directly in front of me. I just got home, but you know, they're small increases. I also changed from a first sport, second sport, third sport model to a model that looks at each sport and maybe how intensive it is with regards to other purchases such as equipment, travel. You'll see a higher price for the golf team or for the ski team because that includes you know, we have to pay a fee to Northampton Country Club. We have to pay busing fees for practices and pay for ski lift tickets at the mountain for the ski team. So things like that went into, you know, the determination of what I thought was best for the recommendation for each sports cost.
So we don't have that packet.
Yeah, I wanted to let both Dave and Dr. Bonner know that the information, like his recommendations, are not in our packet.
I just sent a message to Dr. Bonner about that. I haven't got anything from Dave, but I don't know if I did get something from Dr. Bonner and just overlooked it.
Okay, so if I could share with you all very quickly what those numbers are. I apologize that you did not receive this. So, and if you feel like you want to take a look at these, we can bring this back on the next meeting when you have a chance to take a look at the proposed new cost. So currently, the family cap is $750 in Northampton. The proposed new would be $1,000. Football to increase to $275. Field hockey $250. Soccer $250. Cross country $225. Golf $275. Basketball and swimming $250. Skiing $350. Indoor track $225. Wrestling $250. Ice hockey $500. Baseball, softball, and lacrosse $250. Tennis, track and field, and ultimate $225. And so the comparisons, comparable districts were Amherst, and he had also Belchertown, East Hampton, Longmeadow, Ludlow. So the Amherst, you know, we're still somewhat, our football would be the same, but the others are in the close range. And then Longmeadow, pretty expensive. Their football is $350, and field hockey is $275. So there are some comparison costs, and I am so sorry you did not get this chart. It was well done. So I also wanted to speak to, I know hopefully Bobby is on, and she can speak to the bus transportation issue. And now we've worked out with Durham. If they can't get that, I believe it's the fourth bus, they do reimburse us the cost. So Bobby, are you on? And if you could speak to that very quickly before we go back to the school committee.
Yes, so this is the first year of the contract with the busing company. And I did add in a clause for this particular year about the fact that Durham has to pay us the difference of what they would charge versus what we end up getting for transportation. So if we have to use, you know, any other transportation company, we're going to get the difference. And we've already billed for September, and that was nearly, it was over $9,000, the difference. So the account should not take that hit that it did last year with any luck at all. We've also had a meeting, Tammy, myself, and Durham, in regards to their lack of ability to get the transportation that we need, and we did express our feelings that it was difficult for our athletic director to have to obtain the transportation. So it is something that we're working on and they're working on, between the lack of drivers, between the time change. We did come up with one solution that we are thinking about, and that is to actually do some sort of a lease program, but I have not seen anything back from Durham yet. But that would be something where we would actually, if we could obtain our own drivers that are looking for additional pay perhaps, they could potentially use the Durham buses, and it would be no charge to us, so it could be a win-win situation. But that's something we're looking at in addition to our contractual change that we have for this year and the next two.
Thank you. Okay, Member Seraphy Cox, then Member Stein.
Yeah, I just was curious if there are, similar to the AP course, financial assistance for students who are on free and reduced lunch. Do we have any provisions for sports?
Yep. So those lists come to me. Anybody who's on the free lunch list does not pay for athletics. And anybody that's on the reduced list, it's $40 for a first sport and $30 for a second and a third sport.
Thank you.
Is that your question, Member Stein?
Yeah. I think this question might be more for Bobby, but I'm just sort of trying to understand better the revolving account and the transportation piece. So if I understand it, yeah, do you want to?
Yeah, absolutely.
Walk me through that.
So, yeah. So, sorry, my daughter was going to the living room to
No problem.
dinner, so I just moved rooms. So, we have our transportation budget is through the school committee budget that it's a little over $70,000. Then it taps into the revolving account. The revolving account is that is where all the user fees and the home gate, all that income is deposited in the revolving account. The revolving account covers everything else besides transportation and coaching salaries. So it's every equipment purchase for all the programs. It pays for all the officials for home games. It covers our home game staff. It covers, any cloth purchases. Really, every operational cost outside of transportation, and then it does coverage the transportation overage.
Okay, and so the transportation overages you faced last year took $45,000 from the revolving account to solve. Is that
correct?
Okay, and so part of increasing the fees is to provide enough money in that revolving account to pay for all the stuff that you have to pay for out of it and any potential transportation costs?
Correct. Yeah, I feel my first year, I believe there was some assistance to cover the overage at the end of the fiscal year. It may have been through ESSER's funds or something. I'm not sure how it worked out, but I did not see that hit from 2021-22 school year to the start of 22-23. In fact, I believe when I started, there was about 80,000 in the revolving fund, and starting last year, I was at about 100,000, and then it got cut in half. I started this year with 52,000.
And is your sense that even with the recovery we have with Durham starting this year, we still need to raise the rates in order to cover whatever expenses we're going to get for the transportation?
So I guess my first question to Bobby is, do we know if they've made payment on that first invoice?
They followed through.
Bobby, can you not unmute? Here you go.
Yep, now I can, yep. So I have not checked recently with Terry, but we did meet like a week and a half ago with Durham, and I know they are attempting to pay. So Terry does have it on the calendar. We gave them, I believe it was 45 days to make payment, and she has that on her calendar. If payment is not made, then we will be in contact with them. So we will definitely make sure that we're capturing that payment from them.
I also see that Mr. Worley's hand's up, so I don't know if he has answered one of those questions. Sure. Good, okay. Good evening.
So do we have to vote on this?
Good evening. Yeah, I just wanted to emphasize, I think that the key point is, I think what Member Stein was pointing towards is the reduction in the balance in the revolving account. So we're carrying a reserve of $100,000 and we're spending down that reserve. So the amount that we're bringing in isn't enough to run the operating costs. Either the combination of appropriations and revenue is, last year was $47,000 less than the cost of running the programs. And one of my concerns with that is there's a whole other list of costs that come up periodically that having those reserves is really important for, as, you know, capital costs periodically come up. You know, I'm thinking of like wrestling mats is a good example, something that you don't pay for every year, but periodically you have to replace. And so having reserves available, you know, evens out the cost of athletics over years. And if we spend that down again this year, that reserve will be down to zero, and then we'll be in a difficult situation when something comes up.
And there are other rising costs that, you know, are not as of an immediate concern to me as a transportation budget, because that's something that's prevalent in my mind, you know, every single day, every single trip that I have to try and cover. But, you know, every year officials' fees go up every year. You know, equipment costs continue to rise for, you know, some of the things that have to be purchased, like baseballs, softballs, field hockey, lacrosse, but like those things that you need to use and replace, you know, yearly. And you know, like Bill said, you know, there's going to be capital costs that pop up. You know, there's going to be things that need replaced. So, am I hopeful that it? Well, and actually, the other thing is, you know, the other way that we get income is through our gate at our home games. Looking back at some of the old planning FY, you know, budgeting documents that I've seen, I definitely have seen a decrease. Like they used to budget in the old budget planning documents that I was looking at, they were budgeting, you know, $2,000 of revenue per football game, $1,000 of revenue per basketball game. I've consistently been hitting under that. You know, we might be bringing in $1,400 a football game. You know, we might be bringing $600 to $800 for a basketball game. You know, the per hour cost of police coverage has gone up for our home events. So, you know, there are other reasons why we might look to do an increase in the sport fee, but you know, not knowing if Durham is going to come through on all their on the bills that have come through and what's going to happen there, you know, it just leaves me anxious to see where the revolving account will be at the end of the year.
Thanks so much for giving us that overview, and Bobby and Principal Worley as well. It's helpful to understand what you're facing.
Member Robbins?
So I wonder if we could get those figures and talk about this on our next agenda, because my guess is we'll have constituent input on this as well, and it would be good to come back informed. But it does sound like a dilemma that needs addressing.
Absolutely. So, Dr. Bonner, you said that was fine to bring it to the December meeting, or to get that chart to everybody and then put it back on the agenda for December?
That's fine.
Okay.
I apologize again.
Okay, great. Great, so we will take this up again in December. And thank you so much, Dave and Mr. Rowley, for joining us. And then, actually, so the next item is request increase in fees for entry into athletic events, so.
Yeah.
Not so, don't go away so fast.
So I think this one will be quicker. You know, when, you know, Dr. Bonner reached out to me about this, you know, she also asked, you know, what could be done with the home gate revenue. Right now we're using digital ticketing at our home games, which allows us to, you know, not only do single day tickets, but we're able to do season passes, sport specific passes, for, you know, our NHS students, for adults, children, seniors. So you can kind of be creative with how you, you know, price things out for the year. The idea came to me that we could maybe increase the prices for our single game entries to maybe $8 for an adult, $5 for children and seniors, but have that be the day of single game price of the ticket, but still offer the season passes, the sport specific passes to our community, where I would price it out so that it would stay at the $5 for adults, $3 for children and seniors, or students, children, seniors, so that the cost to our families wouldn't be impacted, but the additional gate would mainly come from the opposing teams that would be coming to visit us. And we do provide passes for, you know, much like the sport fees, how we talked about for the free lunch. We are also able to provide passes for our home games for that community as well.
One question. So, Dave, what do you think the revenue would be from that increase of $3? I don't know how many people from opposing teams actually attend.
It depends on the game. It's tough to tell with the like with the old way that we took in a gate with just cash and tickets, because you can't really separate it out. Halfway through this fall, we transitioned to GoFan, which is the MIAA and the PBIAC's digital ticketing platform. So now you can kind of get a sense of how many single game tickets are purchased as opposed to how many people purchased the fall pass that I provided. I don't have those numbers on hand right now, but I could get those to you of how it looked in the fall.
Member Miller.
I just had similar.
Don't unmute that.
I just had similar question to Member Seraphy Cox's, which is that even for single admission, is there any, is there any reduction for students with, who are on reduced lunch?
Yeah.
Well,
For
what we
the
would do
single
is-
pass?
Yeah, well, what we would do is provide them the season pass, so they wouldn't need to purchase the single game. What they do is they just come to the event and the pass gets activated and they're able to go in, and then the pass freezes for 3 or 4 hours, so they can't pass it to somebody else for then someone else to use.
Any other questions on this?
I'm just curious if there was documentation on this that we didn't get also, or?
No,
'Cause
this
feels
was just an email to me, so, so no.
So then, I don't know how other members would feel about taking these things together at the next meeting, or if they feel like we could vote on the entry fee request and tonight, and then just do the athletic fees in December.
It sounds like Dave would be able to maybe bring numbers to the next meeting that would answer Member Robbins' question about how many away folks buy tickets. Is that right, Dave?
I could dig into it as much as I can.
But it sounds like he said that they just switched, so there
Okay.
wouldn't be as much data. Was that right, Dave?
Correct.
Okay.
I can look at some of the, I can try and ballpark it as best I can, and, kind of project what I think the additional income we could get.
Okay, so
I'm fine to table it.
is everyone okay with bringing it back to the next meeting along with the previous item? Yeah? Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dave.
No problem.
Okay.
Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you, too.
Thank you, David. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, we're up to D, recommendation to adopt policy ACAC, bullying and harassment. And Member Geezy.
Okay. We have the policy here for you, and we had included it in your folders. The yellow portions are changes that Dr. Bonner and Attorney Taylor made. Rules and policy discussed this. There had been a section down under definitions. Where is it?
Can other people see this policy? The folder says folder's empty for me, but it's a.
Oh, you click on it
from
on the
the
agenda.
agenda.
Oh, okay.
It has actually copied into the folder, but it takes you to the folder where the thing actually is.
Okay, got it.
I see.
It's a pain. It's
I
kind of-
saw it once.
But
Yeah,
if
there
you
it
click
is.
on it, then you can get rid of it.
Okay, I'm in it now, thank you.
And where is the piece?
So,
Dr.
Holly, that piece that Attorney Taylor told us that we should not include, it's not there. That was the line about the power differential.
Right, she recommended that we not take it out. I see, it's already been taken out.
Yes.
Dr. Bunner had explored that line that I think you had seen at the last meeting about the power differential. Situations where the aggressor exerts a power differential over their target. And Attorney Taylor said she did not recommend that because bullying has legal definitions with specific legal elements. And so it's okay that we added the acts of exclusion, like social isolation. Also, our own code of conduct, which is referred to in ACAC, gives administrative discretion to consider the unique circumstances of each case. So we did take that line out. And then everything else, I think you can see, we worked in the comments from the last time. So this is ready for, this is our second reading, I believe, on this.
Can I ask you to say again what the reason for taking out the power differential thing, what was it that Attorney Taylor said?
Because bullying has a very specific legal definition, and it has specific legal elements, and that are in state law, and that if you sort of add this other thing, it just makes it very murky. And because our administrators already have the ability to take into consideration the specific elements of that case, if it was one of a power differential, they can still act on it. I believe, Dr. Bonner, is that a correct representation?
That's correct, yes. You pretty much did word for word from Attorney Taylor.
I wrote it down on the little pad, so I remember. Yeah.
Just had a question on page 2 where we have the big block in yellow, and should it, it's should it say cyberbullying is
Yes.
bullying? Okay.
And that's,
Yeah.
that's above, if you scroll up.
That's all.
I get it, okay.
Yeah.
That- Okay, thank you, yeah.
It's just because of the lineouts.
Gotcha, gotcha, okay.
Anybody else? Did I see another hand?
I was just going to say that as I'm looking at the definition of bullying, I cannot imagine a situation in which these things happen and there is not a power differential. So so the power differential issue came to us from the alt team as a suggestion. And while I would like, I support the policy as it's written here, I do wonder, are there places where we can continue to incorporate that idea of power differential into how we're training about bullying, how, support the alt team in continuing to incorporate that into their understanding of bullying and how it works.
I think she was talking to you.
I mean, it's
You, Dr. Bonner.
If you have any
Yes,
ideas, feel free,
I-
but otherwise.
I shook my head because, that was a part of the that was a part of the conversation that we had when we were really talking about the implementation and prevention plan, and just kind of reviewing the bullying policy. So we being the alt team, we've had conversations about this, and I'm sure it's going to be ongoing. But that was one thing that we really talked about, the power differential, and I think with Attorney Taylor, because it's such a she called it a messy component, and it's not in the law, that it would be very difficult to defend if there was any litigation that came against us, according to if someone was bullied and we didn't act. So. But I do hear you, because in essence, that really is somewhat of part of the concern when it comes to bullying. There's always that the aggressor. I mean, we use the term aggressor, and then we use the term target or victim. So,
Okay, Member Miller.
I would only say to that is that I have been familiar with cases in which, although there's a power differential in injuring one to the other, that because they are peers, there have been many incidents of peers, meaning same sex, even same gender, same everything, that they would not be considered, that one would not be considered to have more power. Now, obviously in the dynamic, there's power. I understand all that. But in terms of, I can see with legality, if the two were peers, that's probably the challenge.
yes.
It's not in the dynamic. The dynamic is absolutely uneven.
Member Stein, did you have your hand up before?
Yeah, I just had a,
Oh,
no, so I had it up again. I had another question, just to make sure I understood the way this is supposed to flow. So on page 1, we have the list, this policy will, and it has all these things, right? And the last bullet is clarify the extent to which the administrators of Northampton Public Schools are directed to apply disciplinary actions as specified in the following Northampton School Committee policies and school district procedures. And it's got the student rights and responsibilities, the code of conduct, student discipline, and the school safety plan. And then when we go down, if I'm reading this right, so the subject, the content of that in this policy is is it the district procedures? So 6.
And the reporting and
And the
investigations.
reporting. Right, and so the way it's going to flow is, we're going to do, let's see. Yeah, so under district procedures, right, like, because right now, those 4 documents still need to be modified or updated based on this policy, right? So it seems, if I'm reading this right, it's like bullying, harassment prevention, intervention plan, that's going to inform how we change those things?
Yes,
So that's the next part, okay.
that's the next step.
Yeah, all right.
There's a lot of updating because you guys have been pretty busy with your policy. So probably in the spring, all that updating, especially the code of conduct will be ready for next school year. There's a lot of work to be done, but yes, you're right, Member Stein. There's a couple of things that we need to do in alignment, so everything will be updated.
Great, thank you.
Are there other?
I would just make a motion to to adopt policy ACAC, bullying and harassment.
Second.
Motion made by Member Seraphy Cox, seconded by Member Robbins. Any further discussion? Member Robbins joined us again. I see Member Agna and okay. No further discussion. Roll call, please.
Before I do that, I just want to say Mayor, Member Levy is back in the meeting.
Yes.
Member Seraphy Cox.
Yes.
Member Stein.
Yes.
Member Levy.
Yes.
Member Miller.
Yes.
Member Goldman.
Yes.
Member Agna.
Yes.
Member Davis.
Yes.
Mayor Shara.
Yes.
Member Robbins.
Yes.
And Member Gazy.
Yes.
Okay, that's been adopted. Next is E, recommendation for first reading. This is policy JRA on student records. And Member Gazy.
This policy has undergone, thank you guys. This policy has undergone review by Attorney Taylor. You can see her comments on it. It was done after she put in her final comments after we had our rules and policy meeting. So that has been up to this point.
Okay. Anyone have some of their own comments to add to this or thoughts? All right, so seeing none, then you and rules and policy would incorporate those and then bring it back for second reading?
Yes.
Member Stein?
You might have already talked about this when you looked at it the first time, but on the definitions, we have parent as used in this policy means X. Do we typically use caregiver in the rest of the policy?
We included that.
Yeah, we had a conversation about that.
Yeah, we had a long conversation about that.
Yeah, I think that
we need to use parent. It is because of the legal guidelines.
Exactly.
We also included
or other person or agency legally authorized to act on behalf of the student.
Yeah.
So that would.
The
that was
definition
the
of
caregivers,
caregiver.
but we had to couch it in legal language.
Okay.
I assume
I
that's.
thought that might be the case, but just wanted to check.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other comments?
Okay,
Seeing
so
none. Okay.
we'll fix this up. Do we have to
You don't have to.
vote on that, or no?
No, it
No, it
automatically
just
just goes back.
Okay, thank you. I'm still learning the ropes 2 years later.
Okay, next we're at F. Recommendation to endorse resolutions to support Massachusetts Senate Bills S335 and S337 relating to special education funding reimbursement and S303, an act increasing the Commonwealth's share of the Education Foundation budget. And Member Robbins, were you gonna?
I am really excited to bring these resolutions in front of us for our community. I know one of our focuses has been to seek state funding and to also offer reasonable solutions for how our legislators can support us in making that happen. And these resolutions have been created by a working group in Western Massachusetts who have recently taken it to the Greenfield City Council and gotten approval. I'm going to go through each of them just so that our public knows that we're talking about. You guys have it in your packets or you have the link on it, but there are actually three resolutions, although of course there are really two because they're Senate bills with just different numbers. One is to 335 and 337 are an act to increase special education circuit breaker reimbursement from 75% to 90%. And I think we're all really, really familiar with what the circuit breaker is at this point and why we are underfunded under that, particularly around transportation expenses, out-of-district costs, and it's extraordinary for all of us. So this asks us to increase after our claimable expenses, it would, we are currently at 75%, it would increase it to 90%, and we would also we would urge the legislature to continue to think about why those are disparities and inequities in districts like ours, and we are hit very hard for it. So that one is pretty self-explanatory. Senate Bill 303, which is sponsored by Senators Comerford and Lewis, is one that I'm particularly excited about because it does address what we're looking for in terms of the percentage that we get back on our foundation budget. Northampton is sort of in a sandwich. We're not wealthy and we're not impoverished, and the percentage that we get back is such a disparity to what happens in communities like Cambridge, where the 82.5% cap means that even though they are able to pay 200%, possibly more than that, they still only have to pay 82.5. And when we send in, I think it's our 51% to the state, and we get 49% back, they get that, but they still have a lot of revenue left over. So they can actually don't have to raise sports fees for their children. They don't have to go through, every year thinking about what teachers they have to pig slip or lay off. And this is actually a resolution that, if it passes through our school council, our school committee, I would say that it would then hopefully go to our city council. We do have some support from members on the city council. This is really about an equity issue that, regardless of wealth, every city is required to pay at the 82.5 cap on it. And cities like us do really get the raw end of the deal, and we have for many years. And the other part of it is that we are making up for, or hopefully making up in this, for the deficit of the last over 20 years of being underfunded, according to how calculations were made in 2015, when we actually, the state was required to look at how the resources that they were sending to cities and that they had miscalculated during those years. And it was over $1 billion at that point, but I think there were other agencies that calculated it like $2.3 billion. So it's a tremendous amount of money that, in fact, we were promised by the state that has not come through. It's a disequity to our students, it's a disequity to our staff, and this is a really great first step in being able to work together with other communities in Western Massachusetts, where we are the highest density of low-income communities, and we need to have a really loud voice about saying we're going to change that, we're going to advocate for a change, and I'm delighted to have these senators supporting this bill and bringing it forward to the next piece. So I am going to ask for endorsement from the school committee on these three bills, 303, 335, and 357, and I think I can lump them into the same one. Yeah, okay.
Member Seraphy Cox?
Yes, I'll make a motion, and then I have two questions. So I'll make a motion to endorse the two resolutions for S335, 337, and S303. So my
Let's get a second.
Sorry,
Yeah.
yes.
Second. Got it?
Thank you. So one question is, it is entirely fine, Bobby, if you do not have numbers off the top of your head for this, but just a ballpark of like what would it mean for Northampton if we were getting 90% rather than 75% on circuit breaker?
I had that number.
Oh, you?
I did have it. Ask Bobby first, because she would know it quickly.
I don't have it.
No worries.
It would be more.
You can say it would mean a lot.
It would be more.
Yeah, I don't have the circuit breaker number. I do have the number for the 5% for the, maybe I do. I have the 5% for if the cap were increased, which would increase us from, we currently get about, I think, FY '24, 7.8 million from Chapter 70, and it would increase at 5%, it would increase to 9.1 million. This actually, the 303 bill would be phased in at 1% per year. And it doesn't mean that would solve our problems, but it certainly means that we've opened the door and begun to really have that leverage to say we are owed a lot of money by the Commonwealth that goes back many years, that's put us in a terrible position. And if we can get our foot in the door with this sort of legislation, then it's a step in the right direction.
And if you fix the charter formula,
Yeah.
would be huge as well.
That's the next one.
And from the figures that Meg has here in the resolution, it would net us another 90,000 a year in reimbursement. Like we're getting reimbursed the circuit breaker, yeah. Because we're getting right now 75% of the 600,000 in allowable costs. But that's, it costs us 1.5 million, only 600 are reimbursable, and we only get 1% reimbursed.
So
So go up from 75 to 90, or 75 to 90, so we'll get, in this math at 600,000, we'll get like an additional 90 grand. Should be like 540,000 instead of 450,000.
Not chump change, yeah. So I guess, now I have a third question, apologies. So I'll just ask the two questions. One is, I'm curious if anybody has a read on the likelihood of passage of either of these bills. And then my second question is if there are any bills related to increasing the assumption about the percentage of the student population that has disabilities, students with disabilities.
I don't know about the passage of it. I wish I did. I think this is just the beginning of it, because we are, I think, possibly only the second community that would be considering endorsing it. And the role of this advocacy group is to present this to many communities in our area, in Western Massachusetts, in our area, and other communities that are in that sandwich piece. So I think the fact that we have endorsement by folks who are pretty high up on the education legislation bench is a really good one for us. And as far as your second question, I have no idea.
Okay.
Other,
There's a motion and a second.
there's a motion and a second, yes. Any further discussion? Thank you for bringing these. Roll call, please.
Member Stein.
Yes.
Member Levy.
Oh, she can't unmute. Could you make her?
Member Levy, didn't, I think I,
Got it, I just hit the button wrong. Yes, sorry, thank you.
thank you. Member Miller.
Yes.
Member Goldman.
Yes.
Member Agna.
Yes.
Member Davis.
Yes.
Mayor Shara.
Yes.
Member Robbins.
Yeah.
Member Gazy.
Yes.
And Member Seraphy Cox.
Absolutely. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing it.
G, recommendation to ratify agreement with Celeste Malvezi for additional duties. And Dr. Bonner, so we already.
Yeah, so we actually voted for this in executive session, but we never brought it back to public. The same with the one that follows.
Got it.
Yeah, so I can make a motion for both G and H. So I would make a make a motion to ratify the agreement with Celeste Malvezzi for additional duties and to ratify the Unit F custodian snow removal memorandum of agreement.
I second it.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Any?
Who was the second?
Me. Holly.
Oh, before that, it was member
I was
Stein.
jumping.
It was a pre-second.
We could spread the second round.
Exactly.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Member Levy.
Yes.
Member Miller.
Yes.
Member Goldman.
Yes.
Member Agna.
Yes.
Member Davis.
Yes.
Mayor Shara.
Yes.
Member Robbins.
Yes.
Member Gazy.
Yes.
Member Seraphy Cox.
Yes.
And Member Stein.
Yes.
Okay, those are ratified. Moving on to I, recommendation to increase the LPN subrate from hourly to a flat fee of $200. And Dr. Bonner, were you going to speak to this?
Well, actually, Karen, Chef O has already spoken to this in her public comment. And we brought this back from last time where we increased the RN salary, but we didn't have the rate for the LPNs. So I am recommending this, highly recommending this, so that we can maintain our subs.
Is there a motion?
So we make a motion to increase the
LPN subrate
LPN subrate.
from the hourly rate to a flat fee of $200 is the recommendation, so that's what you want to move.
Yes, yes.
Motion's made by Member Davis, seconded by
Second.
Member Levy. Discussion? Okay, seeing none, roll call, please.
Member Miller.
Yes.
Member Goldman.
Yes.
Member Agna.
Yes.
Member Davis.
Yes.
Mayor Shara.
Yes.
Member Robbins.
Yes.
Member Gazy.
Yes.
Member Seraphy Cox.
Yes.
Member Stein.
Has left the room.
Oh, I stepped away. And Member Levy.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So that passes. And next up is a vote on a renewal of board docs contract for $9,300. And I sort of picked up, now I can't find where I put it. I picked it up, but I don't know where I put it. I picked up, here we go. Looking at this a little bit, I had hoped to spend more time on it in the last week, but there have been some other things that popped up. But I spent a little bit of time on it. I had hoped to take our agenda for today and build it in here, and I didn't get to do that. But I was going to share my screen and show, I don't know if anyone else spent some time looking at it, but I was looking at some of the Amherst agendas, which I think would be helpful just to see what it looks like. So let me share that, and I'll just give some observations that I had from playing with it a little bit.
And forgive me if I missed something. Were we given access and I missed that in my email?
I don't know.
Okay.
I requested it.
Got it. Like you can make your own login?
No. So I think Member Stein was going to do some of this, and then had said that he wasn't going to. So I requested access and just spent a little bit of time in there.
Gotcha. I just was making sure that I hadn't missed something since you said it. Wasn't sure if any of us had looked at
Just
it.
because I feel like at the last meeting there was some talk of looking at agendas that other school committees from other communities that use it.
I think we're going to try to load our agenda into it and try a meeting with that in it and see how it felt in terms of churning out minutes and the whole piece of it.
That was the goal.
Yeah.
So I wasn't able to I started to try and build it, and then I wasn't able to finish doing that, but I can share. This is an Amherst. overall agenda. I don't know how well you all can see that.
I can see it on my screen in here.
But there's some things that I thought were nice about this. So this shows the whole agenda. If you scroll through, this is item by item. You can see you have attachments in here. So it links to things. And this is so I feel like one of the things I had heard is that it wouldn't really work for our agenda. This is their regional school committee, and so it's kind of a complicated agenda. I wouldn't say that ours is more complicated than this, and it seems to work for them to be able to, you could have as many sections as you want, you could move them around, you can attach to documents. So I didn't load our agenda in there, but I don't see anything that's so unusual about our agenda that wouldn't apply to how other communities have used it before.
Yeah.
Member Levy.
Thanks for showing that. I have two questions that I should probably know the answer to, but I don't. One is this, what you're showing us now, visible by the public during meetings?
Yeah, so this is the Amherst, I just went through a bunch of meetings on Amherst. This was their November 1st meeting that I'm just pulling up on the internet right now and showing.
Okay.
So yeah, so I have no special access to their stuff. This is
Okay.
what
They
everyone.
didn't share it with you or anything?
No. I just went on their schools, I went on their school website and then to where they post their meetings.
Cool. So the other question I have is, and just about the process, what's the process to go from that agenda that you just shared us to minutes, which it looks like, are these what you're showing us now, minutes?
No, this is like if you wanted to print out the agenda, this is like the full agenda, kind of like how we have printouts of the agenda. This is what it would look like, I think.
Got it.
Yeah.
So do you know, or does anybody else know how we move from that agenda to easily having minutes?
I know that there are ways to turn it into minutes. So someone else who spent more time in it, maybe Member Stein, if you know.
Yeah, you can, essentially when you have the agenda set up like this, if we were logged in with access, you can create a minutes template from the actual agenda you already have. So it will take everything you've already put in, and then you're just, you can have vote fields for the items that are vote. And then as you're going through the meeting, you just record the vote, and then that gets just brought over to a minutes template. You can add in notes, and it's just an easier way. You don't have to retype or edit a document of the actual agenda. It kind of copies it in a format that you can use for minutes.
Okay, and then, thank you. My last question, to help me know how to vote on this. We have had this for years, and I appreciate that, Mayor, it seems pretty smooth for you, and Member Stein, it seems like you've got a good handle on it, but because it's been years and the person who needs to have a good handle on it is Annie, I'm just curious, what would be the process for Annie to feel comfortable using this moving forward that would be different from the last few years when Annie has not felt comfortable? And maybe, Annie, that's a question for you, or maybe that's a question for people who know about how training would work.
Okay, I'll hand it over to Annie in 1 sec. I just want to, what we would do is we could build a template. So we would, once you've built a template for our agenda, you would just reuse that template every time, so we wouldn't have to recreate it. So I think, the startup time, there might be some startup time to build that, but then after that, it should be very quick. But yes, we would have, the only reason to have this is to use it. Two other things I just want to point out real quick that, maybe I'll go to Annie and then I'll show you. And I think I mentioned this at the last meeting. Having just spent a bunch of time this week going through looking for policies and looking at our policies, accessing policies through this is so much easier, and it's just so much user-friendly for the committee, but also for the public. And there's also a timer feature, which I didn't get a chance to play with, but could be helpful for public comment. It's not a huge issue, but it's helpful for people sometimes when they're giving comment, particularly if you have a lot of people that are commenting, to be able to see the timer and know where they are. And I think there's a way that that could be built into this as well. Annie, did you want to?
To answer your questions, Member Levy, reason I liked that, for a lot of the reasons, is to generate the minutes in that way, was the reason we were looking at this a couple of years ago. And also, I also do like the policy issue, the way they do policies there. You know, I mean, today we had a lot of issues with our website, and we've been having issues with our website for about 10 years now. It really needs a lot of help. It really needs a lot of investment. So, you know, however the committee wants to vote on that. Now, when we first did this, and Michelle Jarvis, who's in the office with me, and I really went through everything. We watched every video 10 times. We watched every YouTube video we could find. We got training from the company. But our agenda format policy was very different than what can be loaded up on here. So I think with Dr. Bonner, we do have an opportunity to change that around a little bit and maybe see if that could work. As far as the minutes goes, because I got so frustrated with board docs, I did create my own template workaround, which will be minutes production since May, and we've gone back to a set number of meetings per month. We've been able to generate minutes on time, and it's been fine. It was just all those years before that, going back to like 2016, a lot of meetings, a lot of minutes. You know, I think the other thing I'll say is we've been in contact with the company a lot. It took them a year to get the policy manual on there. It was frustrating for me. I think Bobby Jones can talk about some of that too. So whatever the committee wants to do, we have the workarounds in terms of, the other thing I really liked about the policy, about the software, or what I thought could happen, is that when people vote, the public can see it right there, like C-SPAN, and they can also see the motion. So it kind of will eliminate creative motion making and that sort of thing, and that would be really nice because it's right there in the public, and people will be very, very concise about the motions that they make, which is difficult when you're writing minutes. I mean, I'm working with other people that are helping write minutes, and you know, to go back and go over it over and over again, really time consuming to get it accurate. So whatever the committee wants to do, just the only other thing I want to say, and I defer to Bobby Jones about this, is the cost of it, and the communication with the company can be difficult.
Can I ask you a clarifying question about this? So I just put up, so this is what I had started to play with. Yeah. So I added all of, you can see here on the left, I added all of the sections that we have in our agenda.
We've done that before.
Right, so I'm just trying to understand, when you say it didn't match how our agenda is set up, and also these are movable, like, oops.
Right, we've been in this.
So
we used to have an agenda format policy that was very different. Okay. And the thing that Michelle and I would run into is having, like, so you can do.
But that agenda format policy doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah. No, it doesn't exist anymore. So now it can be different now, but we have, there does have, like you said, there has to be a sort of startup time for us to figure out the right way that an agenda would really work. And what was happening is, so if you look at 6 recommended actions, there's A, B, but you can't put anything under A or B. There's only so far you can go with that. And we were going, you know, for the sub things. We couldn't get in there to make that happen, which would be frustrating when you're trying to do minutes.
You can get it under there. You couldn't add, you mean like you couldn't add sets of minutes under?
No, so.
Like under the minutes for
keep
approval?
Indenting the note taking, like, so you have section 6A, and then there could be A1, but you know, we had a hard time getting that done. It's been a long time since I've looked at this. I mean, Michelle and I went through it all winter long. We spent a lot of time training on this, and we really both came up with, this is difficult, and we were spending a lot of money on it and having a hard time communicating. So, I mean, I did these workarounds. I mean, nobody's in the voting record now, but the voting record is right there and available for everybody to watch while the meeting's going on. And I also have a minutes template, which is just the same thing as this, and it works just as quickly. And I mean, Dr. Bonner can tell you, we have been putting out minutes quickly for each meeting and staying up to date with them. So I think it's the policies that would be the best thing to keep if the school committee wanted to keep this. And there's also cost issues, so it's all up to you guys.
So just to show you, these are the policies that are here, and so you just open, so these are all the foundations and basic commitment ones, and you can look at bullying and harassment, and then you can go and, if you know on our web.
them right there.
Right, but it,
And you don't
it's
have
also
to go back and
costing.
have to start from scratch, which like,
Yeah.
is maddening.
Our website needs a lot of help. We've had a lot of issues with it for all different reasons today, especially for some reason, not just the policies. And, I came on board here in 2018, and there were 2 websites. One was for the policies, and I pretty much had that up to date. But when IT merged our websites, they created a new policy book that was totally out of whack. And it's made it very difficult in the way that the policies are now. So either way, we're going to have to do something with our website. It's just a matter of cost, and whether we use the website for policies or also cost out this for another piece of software. But I'm going to let Bobby talk about that.
Okay, Member Robbins and Member Seraph.
So, I think I've been pretty straightforward about saying that I think board docs would really be helpful for us. And having the policies loaded in here, even today, I was in the car trying to find a policy on my phone, and I couldn't get it. I actually had to go do a whole backwards thing to get into it, and it was frustrating, and it was time consuming. So having them loaded in a central place is a really good idea, but it's not worth $9,300 or $9,500. And if, in fact, I think what I'm hearing from you, Annie, is that you still don't want to use it.
I'll use anything you want me to. It's just we were having a hard time using this. It cost us a lot of money and a lot of time to not be able to use it. I mean, it's also a matter of getting the school committee trained on it. So we were having a lot of meetings every single month, and it was hard to get to anything, software or the website or anything
So just
like
a simple yes or no would
So
be great.
I will use whatever the committee decides to use, and it doesn't
But
really
we already
matter to me
decided
either
to
way.
use it before, and it didn't get used. So
That
if we
was the
spend $9,500 of public money to buy this again, I wouldn't vote for it unless I was really feeling confident that starting tomorrow, you would say, I'm going to get on this, and I'm going to make this work.
I requested this school committee look at this software a year and a half ago, or 2 years ago now, and they voted it in. After about 6 months, I requested to review it because we were having such a difficulty. So whatever was spent since the time I requested that review, that I can't speak to that, but we will get to it as quickly as we possibly can. We've got a lot on our plate. Of course, this would be something that we factor into the work that we're doing right away. So, but I think the mayor was right when she talked about there's a little bit of a lead time. The policy manual is in there right now, but it's not up to date in board docs, and it took us a year to get them to even put that in there, and that was definitely part of the frustration. So
Now that's in here, I mean, we could update that, right? We wouldn't need to rely on them.
Right, but we'd have to go in there and update everything, so I've been dying to update all the policies, and I'm just waiting to find out where I need to be doing that. That's all. Or either way.
Okay, so one more quick question for you. So, or can someone, Annie, I don't know, you or somebody, when you say that school committee needs to be trained on it, I'm not sure can you explain what we would need to be trained on?
It would just be, I would guess it would take a month or 2 for people to get used to using it, but we would have to spend time in a meeting for everybody to I think we would have to put together a presentation about it, right? The first time we used it.
So I did talk to board docs about that, and they said that they will do online training for us. And they said it might take an hour, depends on how smart we are. It could take half a day, but using it is, I've also played with it. It's pretty user-friendly, and it's a question of just, toggling stuff and putting it in here or there. And I think that if we sat down with one of their trainers for a session, it probably be something we could all get a handle on fairly quickly. But I will still say my reservation would be if our clerk is still very uncomfortable using it, that is not a good investment.
I'm not uncomfortable using it.
I feel like the back end, it would take some understanding, but just trying to access it as, someone who's looking at an agenda or, caregiver, it seems pretty easy. Okay, Member Seraph Cox, keep meeting.
Yeah, when we talked about this, I want to say like a year and a half ago or so, I believe it was Member Robbins brought up that other districts had purchased board docs through MASC.
We did too. We did purchase this through MASC.
Originally?
We didn't purchase it through MASC.
I think think Bobby can speak to that. It was Nick when we did it, and we had to jump through some hoops to make it happen all that time ago, but since then, I think more districts have done it.
MASC has no record that we ever purchased it with them.
Bobby
So,
would have to
yeah,
speak
They
to
said we purchased it from an outside vendor.
Bobby?
Yeah, I think that's true. I don't believe we did go through MASC because the first time I heard of that was at a meeting several months ago. But yeah, no, I don't think we went through MASC.
And my understanding from that meeting, the information that Member Robbins brought was that the cost when it's bought through MASC is significantly lower.
The annual cost.
Yes.
It's,
Right.
it's not actually. What we did get the MASC rate for some reason.
Oh,
So
okay.
this is the figure that we would get.
Okay.
It's just MASC, if we bought it through them, they would have gotten a kickback from the company. But
Got
for some
it.
reason, we got it at the MASC rate. It's all
okay.
mysterious, yeah.
Okay.
That's the misunderstanding.
So then disregard
Yeah.
that portion.
I share a lot of what's been shared. I'll try not to repeat what you guys have said. I just wanted to point out a few things. So the first year we had this, I forget what the product is called, but it's basically the board meeting, our normal board meeting, and then the subcommittee meetings. And that was about, I think it was $19,000. And then last year we eliminated the piece that had the subcommittee meetings, so it was just the school committee meetings, the main ones. So, and that was around the 9,000. So we're in already at 28, and we haven't used it. So the renewal would just be for the school committee meetings. We would still have to figure out that subcommittee piece differently. Or if this worked out and you wanted to add that, you could think about adding that later. One of the big benefits of this that we haven't talked about is the permission, so that, like when the mayor went on and looked at the Amherst one, those permissions are all set so that a member of the public can go on and access all the documents from the meeting, not see anything they're not supposed to. The permissions would be set for the school committee members of that regional school committee so that they can see everything they're supposed to see. And then there can be executive session privileges as well. So right now, one of the things we always run into in a meeting is a document not being available or the permission not set so that everyone can see it. So we wouldn't have that problem anymore, which, that would be nice. I think it's I think many districts have implemented it and it works well for the public as having access and for the members. It's just hard for me to think about spending the $9,300 given that we spent 28 and we didn't use it. So, and I haven't seen any evidence to suggest that we will. So I mean, I would want some, if we do vote that way, I would want some assurance from Dr. Bonner that it would be implemented and that she would oversee the day-to-day operations to make that happen.
And I think I would also just love to know if Dr. Bonner has a recommendation.
Excuse me. So whatever you all decide this evening, if you decide to purchase this service again, we will use it. I'll make sure that Annie gets the appropriate training, online training, have an actual consultant from the agency to train her. So it'll be, if it's something that you all want to continue with, then I will pretty much manage, as Member Stein has pointed out. I will manage the process to make sure it's implemented.
I would say it would be ideal if we could start in January with the new school committee, just have their first introduction to our agenda, so they learn our processes on that, as opposed to then having it.
No, as the technologically challenged person on the committee, I would say that I'm confident that I could even learn it, especially if I get Member Stein to show me.
Personal tutelage.
Okay, is there any further discussion or a motion?
I'll make a motion. I mean, I think if we have supervision and we have oversight on this, and the implementation is that it's used in the January meeting and ready to go, it's a very good investment. So with that caveat, I would make a motion to go ahead and endorse the purchase of this contract with this company, and with the caveat that we will be using it in January, or the committee will be using it in January. Full sale.
Motion's made by Member Robbins, seconded by?
I'll second.
Seconded by Member Seraphy Cox. Any further discussion? I'll just say, this was one of the things when I was mayor-elect, and I was at the meetings in the fall before we all were sworn in, this was one of the things I was most excited about.
Me too. I remember that. It was
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah.
So will be nice to get this in January and have us finally use it. Okay, no further discussion? Roll call, please.
Member Goldman.
Yes.
Member Agna.
Yes.
Member Davis.
Yes.
Mayor Shara.
Yes.
Member Robbins.
Yes.
Member Gazy.
Yes.
Member Seraphy Cox.
Yes.
Member Stein.
Nobody will judge you if you say no.
Yes.
Member Levy.
I don't know.
You say, I don't know.
With the stipulations that Member Robbins said, then
I'm sorry you won't get to experience it.
me too.
Well, you will if you go on our website.
Was that a yes, Member Levy?
Yes.
Thank you. And Member Miller.
Yes. Okay. We're gonna give that a shot. Okay, this next item, we don't have to take up tonight. This was, in case we wanted to discuss our, rules around public comment. So this was something that I built into the agenda in case we felt like we needed to talk about, any changes that we might want to make, or, so we can have that discussion, we can not have that discussion. Thankfully, this meeting turned out better, but I've been basically sick with worry for a week. Member Stein.
Yeah, I mean, reading the existing policy, it was clear to me that we need to update it to either conform to what our practice is or innovate it in some way. So I don't know if we should try to refer that tonight to the Rules and Policy Subcommittee.
It's already there.
It's already
there.
Beautiful.
We've had it. It's ready to go. At the last minute, what happened is we wanted to attach it to the norms. And the norms didn't get done for a long time, and then I forgot to attach the rules and procedure. So we've got it ready to rock and roll, and I can bring it for a second reading next month.
Okay, and so just, I had it up, but this is policy BEDH, right? Public participation at school committee meetings?
I think that member Gazy was talking about rules of procedure.
Okay, so the BEDH doesn't match with what we currently have. So I would say if BEDH is not before you, that should also go before you, and they should match.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that's what member Stein was trying to ask about, is if we could refer BEDH to rules and policy.
And that would be one we probably need current legal advice on, right?
Yeah, I mean, we
Yeah.
get
Yeah,
we get
definitely.
that for our,
I know, but this one is,
yeah.
We've already had a layer of edits on it.
yeah.
Of BEDH?
Oh, no.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
BDH was in 2020 before we came.
Right. I mean, Layla looked at BADH in preparation
Right.
for today's meeting, but I'm sure we'll have further opinion.
And
for
I
sure.
think we'll have some outcome from the city council as well.
Yeah.
Maybe, they haven't yet.
They haven't
They,
figured it out.
well, they're looking at it in one of their subcommittees. So, and if you'd like me to come to Rules and Policy and kind of update on what their conversation is, I can try and do that.
Oh, that might be nice.
Okay. I was gonna say, when is it, but I'm gonna announce when it is later, so I'll just do that.
Wednesday. Next Wednesday.
Okay, anything else anyone would like to discuss around this? No? Thank you, everybody. We are up to reports and recommendations and a superintendent's report. Dr. Bonner.
Okay, I'm going to be relatively brief tonight. So as Member Agna mentioned that we are both at the MASC and MASS Joint Conference in Hyannis. And some of the seminars that I attended were messaging in times of crisis, which is really apropos for where we are right now, having a consistent message and really incorporating and reiterating our values and just getting that communication piece out, having a command center when there's a crisis, and working with the city departments as well as the school committee. So that was reiterated. Another one was looking at othering, belonging, breaking, and bridging, which deals with topics around equity and inclusion, which was really well done. That was done actually by CES. And so it really focused on what those topics actually mean, othering, belonging, and making sure that our students feel that they belong, and that what does that mean in terms of us as a district, and what things have we put in place for them to feel that they belong, and bridging those gaps that may occur due to polarization or marginalization. And then another one that I attended was strategic planning, which we are in the process of embarking on. And again, consistency in messaging and getting the word out and keeping that document alive and fresh in people's faces so that they know that what we're about as a district and what we're doing towards our strategic plan. Our keynote today was very exciting. Actually, I heard her speak at the summer conference from MASS, and that was Darnisa Amonte Jackson. And of course, she is totally focused on the diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And so those were some highlights that I garnered very quickly from the experience on the last couple of days. And then I wanted to ask you all for the remaining time for this year's agenda under the superintendent's report. I would like to bring in each of the principals to share a little bit about what's going on in their schools, as opposed to me speaking all the time, but for them to speak and to highlight some of the things that are going on, and to share with you how they're implementing the new literacy program and the new math program, or some of the other things that they may be doing at the different levels. So I don't know what your thoughts are about that, but I would like to do that for the next 6 months. And that's it.
Okay.
It's just going to be short.
Thank you.
It pays for me to be under the weather.
Well, I'm not sure that I would agree with that statement, but.
Does anyone have any comments on what Dr. Bonner was asking about providing time for principals?
I mean, I think it sounds like a great idea. Generally, in school committee meetings, we hear from principals either when they're presenting their school improvement plans or when there's something wrong. So to have them come and share with us kind of mid-cycle that way sounds really valuable. and good for relationship building too.
Okay, Member Agna.
Yes, I absolutely agree that, Dr. Bonner, I would support that idea that principals would come and speak about their schools' activities, as well as possibly inviting some students to join them if that is something that they think would be helpful to them or that would give better picture of what's happening, or their teachers or their paraprofessionals, whoever they feel that they could bring to us to share what's going on. I think it would really, especially as we're approaching budget season, and the idea that the community needs to know more about what's going on in our schools and having that advertised that they will be there, I think we get a lot more people tuning in. And I'd just be very excited to think about the fact that it would not just be for their school improvement plan or when something's wrong, as you said, Member Seraphy Cox, but really to share what is happening in real time. And so I'm excited about that. And thank you for bringing that up as a good idea. Thank you.
Member Miller.
Well, I agree. I would really appreciate that because I think at our level, at the school committee level, it's most important to me to know what's going on actually in the schools. And particularly, I would say in times of sort of crisis, when we know there's a lot going on in the world, and I would want to know what's happening in the schools. So I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, I just had a question. I didn't know if Dr. Bonner, I wanted to sort of get a temperature check on where you were. Recently, last month we talked about having the backlog of minutes completed by the end of December. We passed 7 tonight. We punted 4 to make revisions that we'll take up again in December. We're going to look, I guess, at another 10 tonight in executive session. So, roughly after assuming all these get passed, we're still got about, 215, 220 left. I'm wondering how confident you are that we're going to make the end of December of getting those completed, and if we'll take them up, a large portion of those at the first meeting in January, or how you see that playing out.
So I can tell you that those 215 will not be completely done, although we're making progress. And as I stated before, this was something that has occurred over a period of time. So it's going to take time to get those things done. And so, we're working towards it, Member Stein, and I am, there are other things that are going on in the office that we have to get done. So it's not just the minutes. And so we are working to try to aggressively get the things done. And so hopefully you'll get another set of 20 next month, but it won't be the 215. And so, again, working with Annie, trying to get things done, pressing her about getting the minutes done. And then again, once it's viewed, there are things and inaccuracies that have to be corrected. And so, we're just being vigilant on what has to be done. We know that the minutes have to be done. They were not going to be done by December. I'm just going to be upfront with that. It's not going to be done by December. 215 documents will not be done by December.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I mean, it's why I think when the deadline was set, I was so shocked about it. But, we had another one for the end of July we didn't meet. Now we're going to have this December one. And in August, we had voted to request a new plan. So if next month in the report, if you can give us a realistic timetable on completion, that would be great. Because I would like to know when we're actually going to finish this. If it's 20 a month, what's that going to look like? If it's 15, what are we projecting out? And balancing all the other responsibilities of the office, what do you think reasonably is the time frame that's going to be accomplished? I think that would be great to get.
Member Miller, did you raise your hand again? Yeah?
I guess what I worry about is, has anyone been in communication with the Attorney General's office in terms of their concerns about this, and whether they're being kept up to date with what's being done?
So, Dr. Bonner, were you going to answer?
Yeah, so I have not been in touch with them, but I do know that because we are actually working towards it, we're not being penalized, but I will reach out to them. It'd be nice if we can have some relief. But I'm so sure that these minutes have to be done, and done in a timely manner as soon as we can get things done. So we've gotten the 2018 and 2019, I believe, out of the way. So now we're just looking at 2020 and 2021 and 2022 and some 2023s. So, you know, it's, I don't even want to talk about it. It's something I inherited. I don't know how it got to this point, but it has to be addressed, and it will be.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the superintendent's report? Nope. Okay, so we will move on to Bobby and the financial report, please.
And I'll be really brief. Everything that I have for you is in the packet. I have been working on the budget for FY25, and that will come to you in December. Other than that, if you have any questions, I am available at any time.
Anybody have any questions? Right now at this time that she's available. Okay, seeing none. We're back to you, Member Gazy. And rules and policy, discussion of policy JIK, condoms and debt.
Oh, yes. Well, there has been, Dr. Bonner went and got feedback from principals, school nurses, social workers, and that's about it. And there's a lot of pushback. There are implementing it. These people foresee a lot of problems with how it would roll out. And so what we would like to do is go back, contact those other districts where they have it working, and find out from them the rollout procedure and learn from their experiences. Is that correct, Dr. Bonner?
Yes. Yes.
So did we talk about that? Did I miss something in our policy meeting? Because that's news to me, I think.
It was feedback that came after our policy meeting, when Dr. Bonner had conversations with principals and nurses and...
So I kind of think we should talk about that in our policy meeting, because that's...
Yeah,
that would
so
be
that's what we'd like to
yeah.
redo. We're just not ready to push it forward right now.
So I'm just saying maybe it was a discussion that we needed to have before we came forward to this piece.
Oh,
Yeah,
this is,
yeah.
but this is just discussion. This isn't even
Yeah.
first
This
reading.
isn't, we're not pushing.
No, I understand that. I just, when you said we talked about it, I don't remember the we part of it. So I remember we had asked Dr. Bonner to go and speak with the personnel, and you're aware of it, but I wasn't aware of it.
I may have misspoken. I couldn't communicate that to you. She communicated with me as the chairman of the subcommittee, but I couldn't really bring it to you at that point, I thought.
So maybe, I'm just saying that maybe it's a good idea if something like that happens, it's just to take it off the general agenda and to come back to the rules and policy to talk about it.
That's
so
what
we're
we
on the
tried
same
to do.
page. Yeah.
That's what we were working on doing.
Well, and just to clarify, Member Gazy, that as the as the chair, I mean, maybe in collaboration with Dr. Bonner, if there is information that the subcommittee asked for and that information comes in between the meetings, if it's information only, I don't think that would be a violation of open meeting law. But maybe.
Only if it is deliberative.
Deliberative, exactly.
Right.
But if it's, here is the summary of the information that was gathered, that was requested.
And it could come from Dr. Bonner.
Right, so it's like, it's just like getting documents ahead of a meeting. So I was just wanting to reassure you that.
Thank you.
Yeah, that communication could happen.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other rules and policy discussion? So then, D, collaborative for educational services. Oh, yeah, sorry.
I was just wondering if the rules and policy subcommittee members had I didn't quite understand the public comment from the Ryan Road nurse about the JFK piece, and I didn't know if you had more insight into what it is, or if you could explain like what the objection was.
Is that part of the complicated
I believe
part?
what she was referring to is that in 9th grade, there's a very extensive health education component that goes along with it. And that currently there is not that piece at the middle school.
Thanks.
So, then you've got to do, if there's not that explicit education to all the students, then it's just counseling one at a time, and that creates its own, some people know and can ask questions, other people don't.
Okay, I'm getting it now. I'm getting the connection because there's no 7th grade or 6th grade, there's not a piece at that.
Well, we wouldn't do 6th grade, but there's no 7th and 8th grade piece
okay.
Covers that.
Great, thanks.
Okay. Moving on. Oh, yes.
Sorry, yeah, I have a 7th grader, and she was talking about health class, and so I guess I would love to know, and I don't know if this was a part of your conversation, Dr. Bonner, but I would love to know if what the recommendations would be around if that should change at the middle school level, because there are kids who are sexually active at that age, and I don't know. You don't have to answer right now. Your brain and my brain are probably not working at optimal peak, but that was just the thought that came into my head.
So there is a new standards for health for the curriculum, and so part of the principles at that grade level, 6 through 8, is about self-management and goal setting, promoting behaviors and avoiding risky behaviors, information and resource seeking, and decision making and problem solving. So there are components, and I have to see where we are in our curriculum. Have we adopted those new standards? Have we made, changes in our curriculum to actually be in alignment, to take some of the onus off of the nurse to be able to have to counsel students? I mean, it's just one of her, and that's a very busy office, in terms of her other roles and responsibilities. To have to manage that would be a little time consuming, I would think. Yeah. So if the education is given elsewhere, that may be very helpful.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, so we are at Collaborative for Educational Services Executive, CS Board Executive Summary.
We got a couple of people raising their hands.
Oh, sorry, oh my goodness. I apologize. Member Agna.
So I don't know if this is something that I should bring up, but I would love to know that there is some oversight in this discussion from our school social workers and our perhaps legal counsel on this, and
Our legal counsel has been there all steps of the way.
Yes, good. So I heard what Nurse Schiaffo was saying, that this is really complicated, both developmentally as well as how it can be implemented in a middle school nurse's office. So I'm just hopeful that that is something that will be paid attention to by our Rules and Policy Subcommittee, and I'm convinced that it will be, but thank you for letting me say that again. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, Member Levy.
Sorry if I'm taking a step backwards. I just want to better understand, and I also was a little confused by the public comment. Is the sentiment that there can't be distribution of prophylactics without an educational component?
That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, and I believe that comes from the Supreme Court's ruling, or where did that come from?
It came from other policies.
Okay.
She said it like.
Our policies?
No, other district policies. And also the discussion on rules and policy, which we talked about age appropriateness in terms of at the high school, there's a wicker basket or something where kids just come in and take what they want. But at middle school, part of it is a discussion about really being able to sit down with a child and make sure they're safe, which is certainly what the social workers' concerns might be, but also that they're in a safe situation.
I think that she also said something like, did she say research-based or educationally sound, or she used some phrase like that, to wait until it was presented in 9th grade. She said something like, I heard her say something like that.
I guess I'm Margaret Miller, I see your hands. I don't know what you're gesticulating
You're next.
about.
You're next.
You're next. I still have the floor. I'm troubled. I understand that this is coming from a good place, but I'm troubled by what feel like obstacles being put in place for students who are seeking something that they may not otherwise have access to and would really serve them. There's a lot of data out there that kids aren't that access to prophylactics doesn't increase behavior, that access increases safe behavior. And I'm just concerned about our adding additional obstacles by saying there needs to be counseling. And I just wonder if if having information, like maybe attached to it is written information for students about here are resources, here's I just think, like, are there other ways to get information across to students other than counseling?
Member Miller.
All I was going to say is that I think that input from social workers, nurses, and people on the ground need to be brought to, first of all, it has to go back to rules and policy, but I think their information is really important because we know that in middle school, the policy says 12 and up, but we have 12-year-olds that have this has never even crossed their minds, and we have 12-year-olds who are very sexually active. So there has to be an educational component, but you have to have feedback from the people on the ground who see how this would work, and how would you possibly roll it out, and whether or not, at what point, parents have to be involved in the decision-making. So that, all of that has to be feedback before this is discussed in, even in rules and policy.
Just quickly to remind you that that is absolutely what we've been trying to explore. We know it's a controversial topic, but that this request came to us from staff at JFK who are worried about their children. And that's where this discussion began.
Okay. Any further discussion on this? Okay, seeing none. Let's try this again. Member Robbins.
No, I
Collaborative.
wasn't. I was just nodding at you so you can.
No,
Oh, you're next. Oh.
I've been trying to throw it to you 3 times.
Sorry.
Third time's the charm. You're up.
And you know what? I'm going to tell you, it's like not really relevant because this is from a report from 2 months ago. And I've got another one for you for next month. Just to say that the CES board has very active and they do a lot of really great things. That's my report.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you for that report. Okay, any discussion topics? Seeing none.
I see something on here that says process for approving service contracts. I don't know where that came from.
Yeah, I see that.
My request. That
Oh,
was the
sorry.
agenda.
Apologies. Yeah.
This was sort of a question about, and I don't actually know if there's a policy for this. You all will recognize what I'm about to tell you. It's like sometimes there will be a contract that comes in and we get a notice from the superintendent that says, hey, here's this contract, here's a little bit about it. Let me know if you have any, let me know vaguely within 48 hours. And it's like you have some moment to ask questions or whatever. But it's really unclear what happens if an objection or question is raised within 48 hours and it's not addressed. Or, and so in the past, last December or November, the interim superintendent sort of sent us a contract about just taking on some new website vendor. And I don't know if anyone else wrote, I was like, well, I don't know what process you went through to identify the vendor. Like, this sounds like we should probably have a conversation as a committee about it before you sign it. And it was like, but if we don't sign it now, we won't get the deal. And I was like, well, I guess maybe we won't get the deal. And it sort of died. And there's a similar process with the contract with the Clark School. And in a way, it's almost like this is some sort of financial control where us as a body are notified of this thing, and then we are supposed to weigh in and say, have we actually talked about that? Or how are we going to pay for that? Like, it's like a control mechanism, but it's not really spelled out how it's supposed to work. So the reason I asked is because we got one of these earlier in the year regarding a contract with a vendor, Red Thread, who's providing furniture and other things for the library remodel. And so like the email we got was similar to what we get, right? It's per your past practice, please review the contract for Red Thread that's attached to this email and respond to me within 48 hours if you have questions or concerns. So I did that, but I didn't get a response. And then I think it was just signed. So the question is like, how is that actually supposed to work? And is it an effective financial control? Do we need a policy around it? What are the things that even come to us? Like, it made me realize that I don't actually know how this oversight role is supposed to function. Because in this case, my understanding at least, was that a lot of the ESSER money was going to be used for this. And so, but in this, or it wasn't, like I still don't know what ESSER 3 is paying for, but in this contract that we presented, it listed $27,503 ESSER 3, and then $72.55 from the NHS library gift account. And my recollection from the former full-time superintendent was that they were going to raise all the money to outfit this. I don't remember a presentation that we were going to use ESSER for this, and yet here we go, we're signing the contract. So it just was not clear to me what financial control mechanism we have in place, how it's supposed to function. If we raise objections, does that halt it from being signed? Does it come back to the body? Like, what does it mean, and how are we doing it? So I don't have a suggestion. I just want to flag the issue and say, I don't know if it's a policy that's relevant that I'm not aware of, like, what do we want when there's a contract that needs to be signed? What do we want to happen to make sure that it's in accordance with action the body's already taken, or the issue comes to the body if it hasn't already? How do we want to treat those things? And that's sort of the conversation I wanted to have.
Is there a policy that contracts below or above a certain amount come through this way? Do we know? I would say below.
Bobby, can you speak to this? Because there's procurement policies that we have to follow through the city. So can you speak to this, please?
Yes, I can. So I think there's pretty stringent policies in place, even above and beyond what the 403B requirements are, the Chapter 149. But basically, in regards to your question, Michael, or Member Stein, 25,000 and above requires a city contract. We also have to supply 3 quotes before that goes through. Our procurement officer with the city reviews this information. Wendy, my assistant, provides she starts what's the DocuSign contract. So she prepares that so she can have the backup documents, which is the contract and any other emails or anything else associated with it. That gets sent to the superintendent, who reviews, and then she sends it to the entire school committee with 48 hours in which they have time to comment on or, put in any recommendations or suggestions or whatever. That should be followed, and I don't know what happened, Member Stein, if that didn't work, but what should happen from there is that if there are questions or concerns that arise, we would stop that process right there, address those issues prior to that rest of the document going through. If we don't see any concerns or haven't had any feedback after the 48 hours, then we would proceed with that contract signing and the purchase of. But it is intended that it should be stopped. If there's questions or concerns, we would take those up prior to any other signatures going through. And that requires the mayor, it requires the city financial officer, it requires the procurement officer, the superintendent, myself. So there's a lot of signatures that need to take place. So hopefully.
No, that's really helpful. So what you're describing is sort of what I understood to be the past practice, where if there is a question, it gets addressed before it moves forward. And that's sort of what your understanding of the policy is. Okay, or the practice, I guess. I don't know if it is a policy. Okay, great, thank you.
Member Levy.
This might be more of an announcement than a discussion topic. So I'm going to tell you what it's about, and then you tell me if you want me to save it for our next meeting. I just was not able
Wait, this is not on contracts?
Not on contracts. Sorry, no.
Could you just hold the phone on that for 1 sec, and I'm going to go to Member Gazy, and then I'll come back to you.
I did look up our policy on contracts, and it says that if a committee member has a concern or question, they may notify the superintendent within 2 business days of the email that they would like to have the contract be placed on the next committee meeting agenda for discussion. And if no committee member so notifies the superintendent is authorized to sign the contract on behalf of the school committee.
What's that policy name?
DJH.
DJH.
Awesome, thank you.
And it says when at least one committee member so notifies the superintendent, the item will be placed on the agenda for discussion at the subsequent regular meeting.
Thank you for finding it. Any more on contracts? No? Okay, Member Levy.
Okay. I just wanted to let the committee know that I was working with a small group of folks within the district to look at what a district-wide approach to restorative practices in implementation might look like. And a few of those folks have been working with the alt team or presented with the alt team. And I, in the last few months, haven't really been able to give as much time or energy to it. And since I'm stepping off the committee, just wanted to let folks know that this is an opportunity for anybody who is interested in being a part of that conversation. You could let me know and I'd be happy to put you in touch with the folks. We had designated some funding in like last year's budget for this. And so it was in part to look at how using that funding might help us spark a district-wide approach. And then there was a grant that was awarded. So it's been, again, thinking about what are the conversations that need to happen and what are the approaches that could really allow us to have a district-wide proactive approach to restorative practices. So if you are interested in restorative practices and you want to be a part of that conversation, please let me know and I can get you on that working group.
Great, okay.
Just a response to that, we actually didn't have a lot of that information, and some of this came up that there were going to be presentations and that work was going to be done on that grant, and I, for one, was really at sea about what that was all about. It came through the Department of Health, and I think Karen McLaughlin was the one who was involved in it, and it took a while. It's taken a while to get any information about what that rollout is going to look like, because it's still in pretty preliminary stages, it feels like. I know Margaret attended to a session that they gave us a couple of weeks ago, and it does need some attention. It does need somebody on the school committee who is really going to be part of bringing that back to the committee and saying, here's what we're doing, this is what it looks like, because I do think we missed a window on what happened last year, which wasn't anybody's fault. It was a communication possibly with administration at that point. But it is an opportunity to make a difference now. And I think Dr. Bonner said she was going to bring a presentation to us, whether it was going to be to the school committee or to the curriculum committee. I can't remember which.
Yeah, and I'll just respond that it did take some time to get off the ground and is in need of continued efforts, which is why I'm hoping somebody will take that on.
So there's already been one training for some people that we were both in attendance, and there's another one. I think it's actually
yesterday,
tonight, or last night.
There's one last night that I couldn't.
And so I know both of us, Member Robbins and I, were both in attendance the first one, and I'm very interested in this.
Did I see a hand over here? Yeah.
I'm grateful that you're going to do that, Member Levy, because it is super frustrating that we sort of appropriated that money and it didn't go anywhere, and we didn't really know about this other grant, so I'm happy that there's some energy around it. I tried to join the first meeting, but I hadn't emailed them ahead of time, so I couldn't get on the Zoom, and they added me later. It's just been, it's been difficult. I'm really grateful that there's some sustained focus to try to make that go forward. I wanted to ask you, Member Levy, or actually maybe the superintendent as well, a different question, but related question, which is, when will we see a conversation at the school committee about relaunching the anti-bias policy? We talked about that briefly maybe a few meetings ago, but in sort of acknowledging that we didn't actually launch it in terms of what was very specified in it. It didn't happen. So I want to know, like, sort of what the next steps are for us relaunching that policy and rolling it out to the community. And I don't know if that's, I guess it's a request to put that on the agenda for December.
Did you raise your hand again?
Yeah, because I'm the liaison to the, I'm never going to get it right, but the Northampton Prevention Coalition. Carol McLaughlin and students together are organizing this with And so there is a second training. Unfortunately, it's happening tonight. But there are a group of people that are already across the district and in, aligning with the health department to continue this effort to launch these restorative practices. So there are lots of people that are already students and the health department involved. In the Prevention Coalition is working to initiate this. So there are people working on it.
I mean, it's good to know. I think what's hard and what Member Robbins said earlier was that, my understanding was sort of Real was taking this on. Real has a very specific mandate to work with the schools. This all seemed to be occurring outside of the schools or officially outside of the schools in terms of how it was applied for and funded and managed. And we haven't gotten any presentation from anyone as a committee of how this work is supposed to roll out or what the intersection is. So it's strange in the sense that no commitment letter from the district was needed for the grant that said, yes, as a district,
No, let me pause. Sorry, I'm interrupting.
Yes, thank you. Tell him, it's not our grant.
Yeah.
That's my point. Yeah, that's the point.
Right.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I do want to say that there was involvement from Roxanne Dory in the grant. There was involvement from our interim superintendent. There was I was on this group, and there were a few people from Real, and then there was Kit, who is from the
collaborative groups, collaborative resolution group. I think that's his title. Yeah.
And then Kara, and so it has sort of been starting and stopping. But there was momentum, and in part it was to think about using the funding from the district. But then when the outside grant was awarded, that shifted the focus a bit. And so the focus has been on how to, again, think about, rather than each school sort of doing its own thing for restorative practices, how do we educate the public? How do we bring, the group was really working to put together public service announcement to get families and students eager to be trained in restorative practices so that then it could be shared with the rest of the district. And then there could be, we came together to put together a strategic plan for the district in rolling this out. And what happened was it was like we needed a strategic plan in order to create the strategic plan, and everything was just taking a very long time. So I do think there needs to be some revisiting, and I'm excited that Member Miller, you're interested in being a part of that, and have been.
Also, just to let you all know that Kit worked with the the principals earlier this year, just to reinitiate the work that he started last year. But we as a group are looking at restorative practices, and people have a sense that we don't have things in place, but we do. Our social emotional learning curriculum meets the definition of restorative practices. It creates a climate or culture in the school where everyone has that sense of belonging, everyone is included. There's those components. So, and then also, how do you deal with conflict? Having those strategies in place. And so he has begun working with us, but this was supposed to be his planning year. This is what I was told. And it was to form the groups. And the grant is going to run out in December, I believe. But his hope is for there to be a larger framework around what are our restorative practices, first of all. What are they to us, and identify those. Yes, we can do a kind of that branding of what we currently already have in place and what restorative practices means to us. So that's a part of the work that he's doing now, and I know he's meeting with those work groups. I believe he keeps scheduling meetings during either school committee time or other meeting times. So I haven't been to his evening meetings, but I think some of the principals will they will get on the Zoom. But he has done the work with us. He knows what we're doing in terms of our professional learning as we read more and more about restorative practices and have our conversation. So it's kind of a twofold thing. They're an outside organization, they have their outside funding, but yet they want to make these changes within the district. And I'm working with them, and they do start and stop, but now I think there's definitely momentum with this group.
I mean, I guess I would request that in December we get some overview of what's the relationship is with this outside entity, how the year's gone and what the plan is to move forward, and what sort of, we haven't had any presentation. And I understand from what I'm hearing that the interim superintendent had conversations and the director of curriculum did, but the school committee never did. And
Well, it wasn't ever at a place to present yet.
Right, that's what
was being organized in order to get to this point.
But I'm sort of saying, like, what should be presented is, hey, we're applying for this grant to do this type of preparatory work, and we're going to come back to you. Like, I'm talking about that, like, that's a presentation, not figure it all out for us and then tell us you figured it out. I'm just saying, if we're going to do something district-wide like this, we should at least understand what it is. There should be some communication about it.
Well, but Member Stein, the school committee did have a conversation about this. We did allocate funding to it, and I'm wondering if it was before you were?
No, I was here, but we didn't then, no contract came forward and said, we're going to hire this group to do X, Y, and Z. Like you're saying, a parallel grant that didn't involve the schools went out, and that was hired. So, like, none of that was ever explained to us. Like, yes, we appropriated money that we just didn't spend. That's my point. Like, we'd had that conversation, but there was no conversation that, oh, by the way, another grant was applied for. We got it. It was applied for with this entity that's going to do this work, and this is something we're doing as a district. Like, that never happened. And to me, that's what's frustrating, because when we get emails that, like, you got to, like, search it out to find out what's happening, and you have no idea what it is. And yet, seemingly, there's already been work done with the alt team, and we're committed to a certain framework for establishing a plan, and we've never been told about it. That, to me, that's frustrating. And I'm grateful that there's some effort to try to bring these strands together and present it to us. But the communication has not been good. No one has told us.
So I do think that is a lapse from last year, and that it is hopefully going to be a lot better this year. We do plan to have principals come and present their SEL programs to us at the curriculum committee meeting. We were going to have one, and we didn't have one, but hopefully we will have one. The next one will be elementary, I believe, Dr. Bonner.
Yes.
Yeah, and they will come and share with us about the programs that Dr. Bonner has just been discussing, which we are really looking forward to, and I totally agree that our constituents need to know what's happening in our schools. We need that reinforcement from caretakers. We need reinforcement from the community about it. We'll hear from the elementary school, then we'll hear from the middle school, and then we'll hear from the high school, because their rollout will be hopefully around the restorative practices piece, which will have a little bit more engine rolling with it. But yeah, we missed that information, and it was hard for Dr. Bonner, because we were saying, so what is this? And she was looking at it going, I just saw it, myself. So learning by having done something a little bit differently. But I personally am pretty excited about the programs potentially that are in place now that we could be supportive of.
Member Miller.
As liaison to the Northampton Prevention Coalition, I can also speak with Kara McLaughlin, and if there is something that's ready to be presented to the school committee, I can talk with her about whether just I would do a liaison report, or whether she wants to come in and have a more thorough discussion of this. But her work is not part of the school committee, schools. So,
Great.
to the health department.
Okay. All set? Okay. If no other discussion topics, then future meetings. Budget and Property Subcommittee, 4:30 on Monday, November 13th. Rules and Policy Subcommittee, 4 PM on Wednesday, November 15th. Just, what did I say? Did I say something?
Oh, sorry, I jumped one.
Okay. That rules and policy, so the city council will not have met with their subcommittee by next Wednesday, so.
Okay. You won't
there-
have any.
I
We have
won't-
plenty of other things to do.
Yes.
Okay, so, I will try and, remind me when the December, if you have a December meeting, I will try and come to that one. Curriculum Subcommittee, 5 PM, Monday, November 27th. Superintendent Evaluation Subcommittee, 6:30 PM, Monday, December 4th. Student Advisory Council, 6 PM, Thursday, December 14th, followed by the school committee meeting at 6:30 PM on Thursday, December 14th. And we are going to go into executive session, and we will be adjourning from executive session, so anyone still with us, we'll be saying goodnight to you now. Is there
I'll make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to enter into executive session. Request to enter executive session under Massachusetts General Law Open Meeting, Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, to approve executive session minutes and to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made by Member Miller, seconded by Member Seraphy Cox. And again, we will be adjourning from executive session. Roll call, please, on entering executive session.
Member Agna.
Yes.
Member Davis.
Yes.
Mayor Shara.
Yes.
Member Robbins.
Yes.
Member Gazy.
Yes.
Member Seraphy Cox.
Yes.
Member Stein.
Yes.
Member Levy.
Yes.
Member Miller.
Yes.
And Member Goldman.
Yes.
Great. Good night, everybody. Thank you.